I do feel like there were a lot of calls I was promised to run that I haven't been able to run yet.
Yeah. So this is going to sound weird, but I was promised from EMT on a lot more ass calls than I've gotten to go on. And
you have a point. You have a clear point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I was told like there are boxes in hospitals of like people who have come in and they're like, hey, you know, I slipped and fell and like there's an object up me. Weird, you know, like there I was cooking and oil on the ground and all of a sudden I slip and what do you know it?
Yeah.
The Tabasco bottle. Okay. Just happened to be there.
While I would say that, you're right. I felt like this was going to be like that's all we did was code 99s and then like I slipped calls. But the thing is though, is it is common enough to where every paramedic that's been doing this long enough will have that call eventually.
I don't know. I don't believe it.
No.
I kind of feel like, you know, it's the lottery at this point. And here's the thing.
It's not like, a lottery I want to win.
Well, at this point, I'm just mad that I haven't gone on one. And I know the worst part of this is that eventually, if I do get to go on one, there's not going to be this like, because really what it is for me is it's the like, I want to see the lie that this person generates to explain the object in the ass.
Oh, yeah.
And this person, like, I'll go on it and they'll be like, hey, so I was trying to get myself off and I lost track of the object I put up me.
All right.
I'll be like, hold on. Are you sure you didn't slip on oil? Like there you were in the shower and the shampoo dropped and you're like, and they're like, no, I just wanted to, I just wanted to add a little more fun to this thing. And I'll be like, dude,
I have one good story.
Yeah, like,
it's not my story, but I'll tell it really quick. And then I promise everyone we'll start the show and I'll reveal who the mystery voice is. It's from a nurse that I work with. And a guy came into the ER and he had an apple up there. And for the record,
hold on. Granny Smith?
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah. For the record, I'm not sure. And I might have told the story on the podcast before. I'm not sure if I have or not, but yeah, he had an apple. And no, but that's a good point because that is important. Like if we're talking a Red Delicious, those things are large and come on now.
And knobby. I mean, a lot knobbier. But a large Fiji. Like now I'm just impressed.
A Honey Crisp is even bigger.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah. But it's amazing.
Like they're in season.
You are perfect for this show. This guy goes in the ER and he has this and the doc's like, okay, we're going to give him some propofol, which for those who don't know, propofol is a pretty good sedative. And then we're going to go in and get this bad boy. And so they give the guy some propofol, so he's out, right? And they go in, they get it, and they're starting to wake him up from the propofol. And that's the nice thing about propofol is you turn it off, people start coming around reasonably quick. And the doc's like, oh, wait, I got an idea. And he goes and he runs to the break room and he grabs an apple from the break room and he runs back in. And then when the guy wakes up, the doctor's sitting there eating an apple and just going, hey, we got it out. Which I think is amazing.
People are made to be providers.
That is what I think is perfect. Well, hey,
hold on, keep him under a little longer while I go get this.
Yeah. Bill him for the extra.
Boy, that doctor is one bad apple.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
I feel so bad that this is the episode my mom's going to listen to, and she's going to hear us talk about butt stuff for the first 2 minutes. Hi, Mom.
Yeah, there you go. Oh God, let's go ahead and start the show. This podcast is hosted by Chris Finkston and Spencer Oliver. They are both experienced paramedics. They've done everything from 911 ground ambulance to volunteer fire department work and are both currently flight paramedics. This podcast reviews scenarios based on real calls run by real out-of-hospital clinicians. Details are changed to protect the privacy of those involved and to present educational opportunities to the listener. This podcast is EMS 2020. Well, as you guys, first of all, welcome to another episode of EMS 2020, but it's a special episode. If you guys haven't noticed, there's an extra voice in there, and it happens to belong to Ashlyn O'Dell on our show. And we are super happy to have her because when we first heard of Ashlyn O'Dell, her TikTok channel was much, much smaller. And I was telling her before the show that, we have a lot of guests on this show. Not a lot, but we have had some guests on this show, and they've all been great. And by and large, we have guests on the show to produce,
good content for you guys. And that's the primary driver. But none of the mentions or cross platforms have actually impacted our numbers the way that Ashlyn O'Dell has. So we're super excited to have Ashlyn on. You have a TikTok. What's your TikTok handle?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Because all of my handles are like one letter off, or like I switch the period wherever it goes.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm pretty sure the TikTok handle is just Ashlyn O'Dell, like no spaces, nothing.
I'll double check for you.
I have no.
You're actually wrong.
Yeah, that doesn't shock me at all.
It is. It's at O'Dell Ashlyn, and so that's ODELL. ASHLYNN. And wow, you're up to 3.4 million likes, 101,000 followers. And for an EMS channel, that's bananas, because it's all about the pond you swim in, right? It
really is.
And you're kind of the biggest fish in the TikTok EMS pond right now, or you're one of the biggest in there.
It's crazy. Yeah.
So anyway, welcome to our pond. Tell us just a little bit about yourself. How long you've been a paramedic? What do you do right now? And all that kind of stuff.
Well, what I do is currently on my off days, I sit here and I come on podcasts and
Nice.
I watch YouTube videos all day long.
Oh, well, you have off days and you're a new paramedic?
Not really. This is like my first one in 3 weeks. It's
Good.
like when you first emailed me, I was like, oh gosh, I'm moving. I have a busy schedule. So that's why it was like pushed so far in advance.
Oh, wow.
I've been in EMS for 4 years. I started straight out of high school. I did my EMT course during my senior year of high school.
Wow.
I didn't start EMS. I started EMS at probably either the best or the worst time. It was the week before the nation shut down. So I got the call that I would start full time literally a week before it got shut down.
Yeah.
And then the day before I started was like when the colleges shut down, when I got told we weren't coming back from spring break. Yeah, that was my first ever time stepping on a truck. So I wasn't only learning their protocols, I was learning their COVID protocols with them. So like all of us were learning simultaneously.
Yeah.
It was chaotic to say the least. And then that same year is when I went to paramedic school in August of 2020 at Missouri Southern. And they had kind of already figured it out, but it was still really hard. Like we could only go to certain hospitals. We could only ride along at certain services. I still wasn't allowed to go to the pediatric clinicals. So we had to go 4 hours away to do our pediatric clinicals and OB clinicals because they wouldn't let us in the ICUs. They wouldn't let us on the OB floors.
Yeah.
So we had to go 3 hours away, which actually ended up being better because it was a level 1 hospital instead of a level
Super
2 or 3. But I've been a paramedic now for 2 years. I work full-time at an urban service. I work part-time at a rural service. And then I am an adjunct at Missouri Southern State University. I go in with the paramedic class or the EMT class, and I help them on their lab days. And it's super cool because my boss at the college was my paramedic instructor. So like our bond has just gotten so much closer.
Nice.
And
That's way awesome.
I told her the other day, when I told her I was going to be on this podcast, she told me she remembered the day I came into class and told her that I found you guys. And she's like, Ashley, you need a break. Like all you do is EMS. And now you're going to listen to a podcast when you're not here. I said, yeah.
Yeah. And you gave her 2 middle fingers and said, I'll never stop. Probably shouldn't do that. Right. So anyway, well, yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming on to the show. So what we do on EMS 2020, guys, is we review real out-of-hospital calls. If you want your call to be reviewed by us, go ahead and check out our social media. We are on Facebook at EMS20/20, and we are on Instagram at EMS2020 Show. On the Instagram, you will find a Beacons page linked in the description, and on the Facebook, you will find a pinned post. Under that Beacons page or the pinned post, you will then find a link to a form, and you fill out that form. It sends us an email with some deets. Don't worry, we don't just fire from the hip and use the form for the call. We will contact you and get more information there. We'll do a little interview and that kind of stuff. And yeah, we can get your call on here. This is also being video recorded as well. So if you want to see our beautiful faces, it will be on the Rapid Sequence Information YouTube channel. Spencer's shaking his head. Maybe we'll just, there we go. Straight up Eminem. Anyway, yeah, it'll be on the...
Sounds like you look like you're on a music video right now.
Right. It's about to drop an album. So yeah, go ahead and check us out at YouTube at Rapid Sequence Info is the handle. And so, yeah. But with that, we have probably one of the most epic calls. But before that, we do have to tell you a little bit about this episode's sponsor. Now, These episodes would not be possible without our sponsors, and particularly this sponsor. Jump Medic has been one of our sponsors now for quite a bit. We love their product and they love working with us, so here we are. But I actually have bad news. You see, Jump Medic has been making the best premium first aid kits on the market for a while now, absolutely crushing the competition in both overall price and value, what you're getting for every dollar that you're spending. But Jump Medic has been dethroned by Jump Medic. You see, the flagship product of our longtime sponsor, Jump Medic, has been the Jump Medic Pro that you can see here. It has tourniquets and all kinds of stuff. More on that later on in the episode. We'll talk about actually what's in it. It has this remarkable lay flat bag that I personally love and is actually unique to Jump Medic's line of Pro kits. You see, Jump Medic listened and made the Jump Medic Pro version 2, which has better clasp for the straps, better snaps, and the ability to hold even more on the inside. Now you can get the Jump Medic Pro V2 on Jump Medic's website, jumpmedic.com, for $299, which absolutely crushes the competition's price. The competition's kits that are even close to the Jump Medic V2 cost more than $400. However, if you really want a deal, you can get the Jump Medic Pro V1 discounted down to $219 as long as supplies last. So the holidays are just around the corner, and with a sale like this, you can absolutely crush the gift game and get somebody you love something they will absolutely love. So head on over to jumpmedic.com and pick up yours today. I am, for the most part, blind on this, but not that blind because I will admit, like, because I've told you guys before, like, I try and come into these things blind and cold to be realistic about them, but it's hard, right? Because sometimes things come in and like, I have access to the email. I see the topics and I have to look away. And I looked away the best I could, but I know a little bit. But the person who doesn't know Jack is Ashlyn. And she's, so she's a new paramedic. And so I'm sure she's going to do fine. So Ash and I are in the hot seat. Spencer's going to be delivering the call. And with that, what do you got, Spence?
All right. Well, I would hit the recurrent themes and the driving points that we want to bring home. But I feel like some of that will give it away. So what I'm going to say is the theme of the day is trauma. And the flavor of the theme is going to be adapt and overcome. Okay.
Perfect. It's kind of the flavor of our job, so, I feel.
Yeah.
Or strawberry, I'm not
but
sure.
Maybe, a little more heavy-handed on that, like. All right, let's start, as we typically do, with who gave us the call. This week's epic call was sent to us from a paramedic that I've dubbed Rutland for this episode. They probably will not enjoy this name, but
if you guys, by the way, are new to EMS 2020, Rutland is obviously a made-up name. Everything you hear is made up. None of the names will be real, and we do that because we want to protect people who send us calls. We don't want you guys to get in trouble for any of this. So we change a lot of stuff. So if you are new to this because you've come from Ashlyn O'Dell's TikTok, there you go. That's it.
Yep. Rutland has approximately 24 years of experience as a paramedic. And they've done it all. Field training, supervising, paramedic education, etc. Their partner for this week's call is a longtime EMT for a 911 ambulance I'm calling Burlington.
Okay.
To my knowledge, these two are not regular partners, but they do have a solid working relation. There is one additional member of this car, an EMT student doing a ride-along. They should be called Student Powerball Lottery Winner, but we're just going to refer to them as the student for this episode.
I hear the whole lottery winner thing, and somehow I don't think this person's going to be winning a lottery that they want to win.
Yeah.
Listen, I've had like 4 students so far. None of them have had anything. So if this student has a really good call, props to you. Just know that never happens.
Mm-hmm. It almost guarantees it won't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we all talked about the calls that the ask calls that I haven't gotten to go on.
Right.
And maybe that's
This is what I really like. We have Ashlyn O'Dell on, and this is the one where we're like, hey, let's open with butt stuff. Let's do this one. And so Ashlyn's mom is going to be listening, and that's all she's going to hear. She's like, I don't know how my daughter went so astray. She seemed like such a good kid.
That's exactly what she would say too. So that's really funny.
Perfect. That's perfect.
All right. Well, let's talk about the system that Rutland and Burlington work in. And I'm calling this one 1848 Railroad Rambulance.
Wow.
Yeah. This is a private ambulance service for a smallish city surrounded by heavy rural areas.
Yeah, you said that right.
Rowell.
Yeah.
Yeah. More on that in a second. There are around 10 cars on track to respond to 911 calls over a 24-hour period. The shifts are supposed to be 12 hours long, and the staffing on each car is typically medic EMT. Most of these ambulances, railroad ambulances, stay in the city center area and rotate through calls based on, who ran the call last. But there are outlying areas that would have an extended response time if the ambulances all operated out of the city.
Okay.
So cars will get put out there and then rotated through based on if the car down there goes on a call, another car gets sent down.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. There is one hospital in this area, which is located in the city. It's a level 3 trauma center. And while it will take all patients that, get brought in from this area, they will often transfer the higher acuity patients out to higher level medical centers. So there are 2 such centers. One is about an hour and a half north, and the other is about 2 hours or so south from this hospital by ground. There are several flight services available to respond in this system, and we'll talk about that a little later in the call because I think that's going to be an interesting system piece when we review this. But let's go back now to the heavy rural areas. So in the city, there is a paid ALS fire department, but in the outlier areas, you're going to see several small volunteer departments that can respond with alongside ambulances if there are folks available to respond. A lot of times they don't unless they're specifically asked to respond, or unless it's a call type with a significant mechanism, significant MBA, entrapment, etc. Or if the ambulance requests additional help for, lifting, or for, like, hey, I need somebody to do compressions, that kind of stuff.
Pause 1. I just realized I don't have my whiteboard. So I'll be right back.
The fact that this service has 10 trucks, I'm like, what is that like? What is that like?
Okay.
Dang.
Whiteboard in hand. I really need you guys to be more prepared for this next time, by the way.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, my whiteboard is right here.
Quick question, guys. Any system things we need to blast through before I lay down the tracks of this call?
No, let me
So
go
do
ahead.
they post or do they have stations?
So they work out of a central station, and then in the outlying areas they have posting.
Okay, so it's kind of a mix.
Yeah.
Perfect. That was actually that was my question. No, this is I don't really have many questions in terms of comments. This one's kind of unique, and this is what makes doing these call reviews so much fun. Is, as Spencer has said many times, if you've seen one EMS system, you've seen precisely one EMS system because it's different everywhere you go. And this one is, you can tell this is not really. You can't really label this system as dynamic or static deployment or any of those things. This is basically. We had a star-shaped hole and we put the star block in it, and that's the only one that'll fit in there. And so that's kind of what they have to do in this case. So I don't have many comments on this because it's kind of unique to this area, it looks like. So, but yeah, cool. Let's do it.
Sweet. All right. Well, moving on to the call. It's roughly 6 hours into the caboose car's shift, and the crew aboard this car have found themselves covering one of those distal areas in the railroad ambulance service area. They had run a few calls already in the day, but nothing of real significance.
Okay.
Suddenly,
actually, I'm sorry, Spence. How long are our typical shifts?
I said this. They are supposed to be 12 hours long.
Okay, gotcha. I know you said it. I just didn't pay attention to you.
Yeah, no, I know.
After a while, it's just kind of like,
That's why I'm chastising you.
After a while, it's just listening to Spencer, just kind of like listening to a fan. It's just in the background. Helps me go to sleep. So
yeah, that's.
But significantly less cool.
When suddenly, like an unexpected blast, the crew hears a dispatch for a code 3 unconscious fall patient shoot across the radio. the three of them, Rutland, Burlington, and Powerball winner student, shoot out to their ambulance and go en route. With the address given, they know it's going to be almost a 30-minute response time, and they are going into the deep backcountry of their area.
Yeah, that's a long run.
That's more than I've ever had to deal with, and I've worked in some pretty rural areas.
Yeah.
Like, I think my longest en route time was maybe 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And that's like, because I was coming from the other end of the county. I wasn't even in my jurisdiction, but wow, 30 minutes.
Where,
that's crazy.
Do you mind me asking what state you're in, or do you not want that out there?
I live in Kansas. I work in both Kansas and Missouri.
Okay. And that's okay for you if we air that?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
One of the things, I don't know what the topography is like in Kansas or Missouri, but the topography in Oregon is hilly, very, very hilly. And so sometimes it can take, like, I've been on calls where it's taken me an hour plus to get to a call, just because if someone's
That's crazy.
Yeah, well, they'll be down in the woods somewhere, right? And so you take highways all the way out there, and then you hit these little roads that are dirt roads, and they wind through the hills, and you're going 10 miles an hour. So yeah, I've been on calls where I've had really long en routes.
So in the ambulance, they do have an MDT, and more details come in shortly after they take off. That shows that this patient is a 20-year-old who fell approximately 20 feet and is now unconscious.
Oh, okay.
All right. So 12 minutes later, they are updated that the patient has fallen and is impaled, still unconscious, and someone on scene is requesting a medevac response. And this is the piece that I kind of wanted to bring up with you guys. I was trying to find a way to fit this in with the theme, but I can't. So I'm going to go with something that I'm far more comfortable with, and I think will be far more familiar to other people.
Really quick, though. Impaled. Is this why you started the show with asking about like butt stuff calls? Like how impaled are we here?
Yeah.
Because if I was listening,
we'll have to ascertain that. So there are 4 possible services for flight, but the crew, the folks that are on scene and talking with the 911 dispatch are essentially using they're using a very common term. It's almost like if you're like, hey, let's Google this. You don't necessarily mean Google. You mean like, hey, let's use an internet search engine to find something.
Gotcha.
But they use this term Google. One of the companies that could respond is Google. Google Medevac. I don't know.
Sure.
The other available flight engines are Bing, Yahoo, and Ask Jeeves.
Flight engines. Ask Jeeves. Yeah, because I don't even know if Ashlyn was born when Ask Jeeves was a thing.
I have no idea what that is.
That's okay. Perfect.
It's it's the highlight of 1998. So technically in this area, Yahoo flight number 1 would be the closest possible service available. And Rutland gets on with their dispatch to clarify that this is the flight surface that should be called because it is the closest and likely the fastest response. And the fastest people who can get there are typically the best ones to respond. Unfortunately, it turns out that the closest Yahoo unit is not available, but they are offered another option. Yahoo flight number 2 is available. And from the math that Rutland and Burlington did, probably about equal distance from their next up service. So they go, go ahead and add them to the call. So they get added to the call by dispatch and go en route. But hold your stagecoaches, folks, because not too long later, Rutland learns that Yahoo flight number 2 is a fixed wing unit.
Whoops.
And so, Chris, what does this mean?
So fixed wing is flight medic talk for airplane, not helicopter. The problem, though, is you can't land a fixed wing on scene. Well, okay. If you land a fixed wing on scene, then the fixed wing is the scene. So that's, yeah. But, yeah.
Like, unless they got impaled at the airport, then they're on scene.
Then they're set. Yeah. So pretty much, if you're going to have a fixed wing, you're going to have a ground leg to the nearest airport where it can land, which, I mean, it can be an option in some cases, but given the distance to hospitals, and I think you'd probably spend more time doing a ground leg from the scene to an airport, and then from whatever airport you land at back to the hospital you're going to, and you wouldn't save any time using a fixed wing. So I don't see, I don't think the fixed wing is going to work in this one.
What the heck is being impaled? Because if you're calling a helicopter, now you have to figure out how the heck are you going to get patient inside? Because in a box, you can shove a patient in there. You can shove whatever they're attached to in there.
Absolutely.
A helicopter's door is tiny, and you have to go at an angle. So what the heck is this person impaled with, I guess, is my question. You
actually bring up another really good point, too, is depending on the helicopter. So, for example, the Bell 429 that I have is similar to what you're talking about, Ashlyn, where you load in at a 45-degree angle from the front, or from the side. But Spencer is in a EC 135, and those you actually load from the rear. And they have, like maybe this patient is. And anyway, so there's a tunnel back there, and the tunnel only has so much clearance. There it is.
Gotcha.
Thanks, buddy. All right. And the tunnel only has so much clearance. And so if you have something protruding out of somebody, it can be really difficult to get in there.
I will shamelessly admit that I just Googled what the difference between an EC 145 was, because every time you guys say helicopters, I don't know a lot of helicopters yet. My best friend is a nerd with helicopters. I feel like the EC 145, depending on what's impaled, you still wouldn't be able to get a lot in there. Yeah. Like the way that it goes in the rear. 135
is the aircraft that I'm in.
Now, 145s are actually a little bit bigger than the 135, but it's in it's in length, though. It's all in length. It's not in vertical. So
I see.
So the same problems would probably exist for both.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, the good news, guys, is that it's quickly figured out. Yeah, a fixed wing won't work because we don't have time to, cut down a forest, pave it, flatten it so that this plane can land.
I mean, if you're not going to try, sure, I guess.
Yeah. Rutland requests dispatch reach out to the next closest flight service, Bing Air, to see if they can respond via rotor wing or helicopter. And thankfully, Bing Air is ultimately who will show up to this call.
All right.
Let's talk a little pregame. Obviously, Rutland is making sure that the flight service that comes is the most appropriate one. And again, to their credit, this is 30 minutes from one of their distal ends of their service area. So my brain just crashed. Stand by.
That's okay.
I've got a cold and cold medicine. So to get to their level 3 trauma center where the patient would just be transferred out would take almost an hour plus to get them there, if that makes sense.
From the scene, correct?
From the scene.
Yeah.
So having flight come in and be able to bypass the level 3 to go directly to one of the, higher level trauma centers is this is a good call in my opinion. So I'm glad that they got this going on the way out there.
And I agree with that, because what a lot of people don't realize is that it's not just travel time. Because if you take someone to a hospital they have to be transferred out of, there's hours. The fastest case scenarios is you're going to add 30 minutes between them getting to where they are to where they need to be. And in many cases, it can take up to an hour by the time EMTALA is done and all that stuff. Because once you're in one hospital, in order to transfer to another, you have to have a receiving physician. Versus EMS, you just have to have a hospital that's not on divert. And even then, we can be, depending on where you are, I'm not going to speak for everyone's state rules, but in Oregon, divert is more like a please don't come here rather than a do not come here. So if you have a critical enough patient, you'll go. So it's one thing just to kind of bear in mind with a lot of this is that, consider what this patient has and what they ultimately need. And that sometimes going to the nearest hospital adds time instead of saving you any time. So anyway,
and I want to point out, because there are people who are but impaled, he could be impaled through the foot, and maybe they should wait till they get there. And some people like to do this. You know what? Here's the thing. I can promise you, at least at my service, we like being called. Put us en route. Because then we actually could live up to our purpose. You know what I mean? Listen, the worst case scenario, we get out there and you go, hey, this ended up being stupid. And I go nice. I got to fly for free. No, correction. I got paid to fly.
Yeah.
and I don't have to write a chart. Like
high
like,
five.
I win.
Yeah. No, I mean, and
So,
that is a misnomer. I think people have this idea that we don't like being activated and then canceled. And I can't speak for every air service, but most of the flight medics I know, and even the flight programs, it's like, no, that's fine. Like we fly, we everyone's like, oh, but the fuel cost. We have to fly these things around all the time for stuff that doesn't generate revenue. Like, oh, it's got maintenance. We got to fly it to a different base. You got to fly to this. Yep. It's fine. We would much rather, because what we don't want to have happen is we want you guys to be out there in the field and consider one thing. What does my patient need and what's the best decision for the patient? And that's it. Don't worry about my fuel. Yeah. Don't worry about my time. Like just say, hey, and if the best thing to do is, hey, let's get them started now and I may cancel, do it.
One more factor that I thought of, I would rather launch a helicopter, especially weather permitting, because it might take you guys longer to launch. So I would rather launch, like give you guys a head start. And if I don't need you, cool. But at least it's ready to launch. That was my next question. Where is the base for this helicopter?
Probably about a half-hour response.
Okay, so it's a little bit out then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now is that half-hour flight time or half-hour including startup?
Probably about a half-hour flight time.
Okay, so they're a bit out then.
Yeah.
This is kind of a perfect segue. So I'll give away their pregame here in a minute, but like, what sort of things would you guys be considering? Remember that you guys, if you were in Rutland's position, would be the only paramedics on the scene. You have an EMT partner and an EMT student writer. Ashlyn, you win the coin flip. We'll start with you.
Well, right now I'm regretting not taking the previous call because that means this one is my call.
Yeah.
So
strong work.
Yeah.
The
one done
thing...
that trade.
I should have wrote that refusal. Yeah, that's where my mind is right now. I really want to know what this person's impaled with, because do I have to worry about airway? They're unconscious, but is that they're unconscious from the fall, or they're unconscious because there's something in their head? Right. That's where my mind is. I'm also kind of concerned that who's on scene calling for a medevac, because you don't hear that very often. That's either like a person with a first responder history or a medical field history, or somebody's already on scene, like PD, fire, or somebody.
Yeah, that's true. I think the things that I'd be thinking of, we already talked about air resources, but depending again, I'm kind of with Ashlyn, I really want to know what this person's impaled on, because it might change the kind of extrication resources we need out there. For example, if someone's impaled on a fixed object, like, let's say you have like a large, because I'm thinking of the scene from Bringing Out the Dead, where the guy is impaled on exactly. And they have to get resources out there to cut, that kind of stuff. What, are we going to have those resources? You said
they're 30 minutes away, like they're in the middle of nowhere. You have a volunteer service. They may not have the resources to cut something.
Very true.
So that would also be kind of scary. Like, do I have to call the city ALS fire service to come all the way down? I need to start them.
Yeah.
Am I even able to move this patient? Because like I said, if it's on a fixed object, how am I going to be able to work? How am I going to hold C-spine? How am I going to establish an airway if this person's like dangling upside down? Am I gonna have to like tomahawk this person? Like, I'm gonna have to Google how to tomahawk.
What's tomahawk? Sorry, I would have to Google how to do that.
Where like if somebody's sitting upright in a car and you have to intubate them. Tomahawk the Mach 4 blade to intubate them.
Yeah, no, okay, I know. I just never heard that term for before. Okay, cool. Yeah, it makes sense. No, I've never heard that before. Wow. So what the kids are doing these days. But sorry, that was actually some. Sorry. Anyway, so that's good. In terms of clinically, I mean, there's not much to prepare for clinically in the sense that when I think of someone being impaled, the biggest things I worry about on any trauma is exsanguination, which is what we should all be thinking about, because the first thing you have to stop is major hemorrhage, because they can bleed out in minutes, right? And so I'm going to start thinking about those kind of things. And then, as Ashlyn said, patient access, then of course, how are we going to get this person moved depending on what they're impaled on? So those are the kind of conversations that are going on in my head, especially when we're talking about being so far out. You want to get these kind of resources started early if you can.
No, an interesting piece to think about would be, and it just occurred to me, would be, I wonder if there's a way to get in contact with somebody on the scene. Because it does sound like
so that was my next question. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like a lot of times, especially the service I work at now, they put like in the call notes, like a number for us to call, or we will call dispatch. They will do like a 3-way call. And I feel like that would be an amazing thing right now, because what the heck are they impaled with?
Right.
It's like my burning question. What did you fall off of to be impaled?
Yeah.
Mm.
What did you slip on?
What are you doing?
Exactly.
What soap bottle did you slip on?
Right, exactly. Does the call take place in an apple orchard by chance?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing on a Tuesday that you fell 20 feet and now you're impaled?
Yeah. Well, in the car, Burlington, the EMT, leads off with the pregame with the prediction that, well, they're dead.
Okay.
And
you know what?
responds like, I mean, if it were a poker bet, I would like, this is where you're like, I'm holding double aces. I think I'm going to go all in, guys. You know,
yeah.
Like it's
impaled and unconscious. It's not, it's not an unfair assessment.
Yeah. And Rutland responds is like, hey, we don't know that. We don't know where the patient was impaled. It might be a leg. It might be an arm. The abdomen.
Sure.
We don't know. He could still be alive.
True.
Maybe he fell, hit his head and got knocked out and also was impaled. And, Burlington again goes all in their prediction that the patient is going to be dead.
All right. The bets are placed.
Burlington is my partner in this situation. He always says the same thing.
Burlington is.
It's a transfer. Burlington's
situation.
like, yeah, they're probably dead.
Like...
It's a discharge home.
I mean,
they're not making it.
But
again,
Rutland has a really good point. Rutland has a very good point. You don't know where they're impaled. The only time I've ever heard an impalement call, it was a tomato cage. Like they were gardening and then they fell over into the tomato cage.
Oh.
So they were just like impaled through the calf.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. All right. So guys, here it is. I'm going to feed you. 22 minutes into the call with the crew still responding, but now about 5 minutes or so away from arriving, multiple volunteer fire departments have arrived to the scene and the scope of the patient's injury is made more clear. This is an unconscious male patient impaled through their head.
Oh, man.
So I'm with Burlington.
I know
now.
You were like, now you're disappointed because you're like, I was really hoping it was through their ass.
Yeah, I was just through the rectum. Through the rectum.
So the crew arrive on scene at the 29-minute mark. They have arrived to a 2-level building in this, we'll call it a forested area. There's a dirt parking lot. They do have to park behind several other units that have arrived. And as they get out, there is a small crowd of people. I don't know if small is the right word, a crowd of people directing the crew to immediately like, hey, you need to go to the back of the building. That's where the patient is.
Okay.
Rutland tells Burlington, and by the way, they tell them this as they're kind of arriving on the scene. Hey, I'm going to go figure out what's going on with the patient. You get the stretcher, and they tell the student to stand back on this scene. But if they can, like, hey, follow us in, stay back. But if you can, try and get like pictures discreetly, try and get some pictures. And the reason that they want them to get pictures is because they feel it'll be helpful to like it when they arrive to the handoff to either the flight team or if they have to go by ground to the trauma team so that they can kind of get a better appreciation of the mechanism of injury.
Okay.
I do want to talk about that a little bit because I think, we have some non-EMS people or even some, EMS managers who listen and go like, for the love of God, don't take photographs.
Hey, Pixar didn't happen, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's like the cardinal rule of EMS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
but
true.
For every picture, then there's,
HIPAA. HIPAA is always a worry.
Whatevs.
Gets weird. Or, the family going like, why are you taking pictures of this? Like there is the potential for bad situation.
I've heard of someone FaceTime the ER physician before because they're like, "Hey, this is what I got."
Well, there's a lot of actually mobile health actually just does a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
In terms of like So
let's hit on this real quick. The plan is one to see if the patient is still alive because
it's not a given.
Before they even get it's not a given.
Yep.
And two, if the patient is alive, their plan is to take this patient from the scene, get them into the back of the ambulance, and start going to the LZ as quickly as they possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about this, the pictures aspect. I feel that there are times where pictures are relevant.
Sure.
When it comes to mechanism of injury, like if you have a patient who was struck by a vehicle and there is significant damage to the vehicle that was, caused just by the patient, like that can be pretty helpful in, when you show up and you're trying to paint the picture to the trauma team. You go, well, here's the car that hit them. And they go, oh shit. Like that is okay.
Right.
So, you mean they were hit? It's like, that's what hit by a car means.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to be so careful because it's hard to defend having pictures that have patients on them if somebody notices and complains, or you send it to somebody and of course no one can keep a secret, so those pictures get out like that. Those are career ending things. So it's
absolutely
I like pictures, but I recognize the danger inherent with them. I don't know, Chris, what are your...
From a company policy standpoint, I think it's hard to endorse. Unless you have like a specific app that's used for that, those kind of things. From a personal paramedic standpoint, I don't have a problem with it because I think, like you said, it can be useful. But if you're going to do that, use your head, delete. And also remember, nothing ever really truly gets deleted sometimes, So, keep the patient out of the picture. Remember, you're delivering them the patient. So taking pictures of the patient, not necessarily necessary. From an agency perspective, it's really difficult for agencies to endorse taking pictures in an uncontrolled manner and transferring them in a way that's not HIPAA compliant, because there are specific things that make electronic transfer of patient information, be it picture or written, HIPAA compliant. You got to use your head and be careful.
Yeah, I will never forget. Heavy Lies the Helmet has an episode of like 10 things your ER physician wants you to know. And one of the driving points was, if you can, take pictures, because like you said, I can describe to you 4 flights of stairs all day long, but I can barely describe how they were this thick. They were this far apart. This is the turn that they smacked their head into. It helps so much. And what I try to do if I do bring in pictures, I either ask, hey, do you want me to print this out for you? Or I delete it right in front of them.
Sure.
And like you said, they're never going to be completely gone, but the effort was there. I did delete it from my personal device. Or what I do is I try to put it, like we have tablets. I don't know how most services are, but like our charting system is a tablet. I might take it on the tablet. So
this is a company device.
Company, I deleted it on the company device. Like if there is proof I deleted it, it's not on my personal device anymore.
No, that's smart. Yeah. I
like
that.
This is also a perfect time to mention, by the way, Ash, I'm not saying this to invalidate what you're saying or what I'm saying, but don't take legal advice from our podcast. Anyway, so there's that. Just putting that out there. Because we're not attorneys.
Medical advice always.
No, don't take that either, technically. So there you go. That's but no, I think I agree with Ashlyn on this. Is they definitely have a place. Just got to use your head. Just got to use your head a little bit on them. So there you go.
Sweet. So again, this is a scene of chaos. Before the crew even make it past, their ambulance to head towards the where the patient is, multiple folks are barraging them with statements like, hurry, he's behind the building down the hill. There's EMTs with him, and he's got a post through his head. Rutland asks questions to the group like, okay, is he breathing? Does he have a pulse? Do we know? But no one seems to have an answer. In that they don't seem to answer that question. They're like, hurry.
Gotcha.
He's down the hill. So
is this like a construction site? Is it like a business building? Like, is it abandoned?
So
it's a Chuck E. Cheese.
It's a singular structure out in the middle of the woods. I can't give more information than that without giving away identifying details.
Is it a commercial building? Like, is it a tree house? Like, what's...
It is not a tree house.
Okay.
Can you say it's a 2-story building.
Okay. It's a 2-story building. All right.
And it's, all right. I didn't think I'd need to give details about the building.
Well, we got to know
it's a 2-story building. All right. So Rutland heads towards the area where the patient is, and quickly they encounter this steep dirt embankment that leads down to the rear of the building. It's steep and it's kind of like loose dirt, meaning that a stretcher is not going down this thing.
Of course
so
it won't.
the stretcher.
Yeah.
Yep.
Why?
Burlington leaves the stretcher at the top of the embankment and just follows Rutland down. They discover that the patient is stationed at the bottom of this embankment behind the building. And here's what I'm calling our doorway assessment, even though this is really more like a behind the building assessment.
Okay.
The patient, who I have nicknamed for this call, P. Gage, is a male in his 20s, approximately 180 pounds and 6 feet tall, or for our metric friends, 82 kilograms and 182 centimeters. Gage appears to be sitting upright on the ground without any assistance, though he is surrounded by people. The patient is clothed in outdoor work attire. He has copious amounts of blood covering his face.
Gotcha.
The patient is noted to have a C collar on, and there is a gentleman I'm calling the Rod, who is holding manual C-spine on the patient and yelling at everyone, to everyone, I guess, for someone to get a backboard to protect C-spine. Don't worry, more on this later.
Okay.
Additionally, there is another responder next to the Rod who is holding onto a metal post that is penetrating through the patient's head. The post enters the patient's skull just above the right eye and exits out their posterior right skull.
Dang.
The patient is not talking or responding to any of the additional people on either side of him, telling him to stay with them and keep talking to us. Rutland asks those, the providers there about a pulse and breathing. Again, doesn't get a solid response from anyone at the patient's side. But we'll get back to that in a second. Let's quickly focus on this metal object. All right.
Okay.
The penetrating object is a metal T-post.
Gotcha.
This is, for those who don't know, of which I include myself in that category because I was like, I don't know what that is.
Me too.
This is a long metal stick used for fencing with these regular kind of spaced knobs along one side that you could attach your wire fencing to, or your plastic fencing. I don't even know if that qualifies as fencing.
If you guys want to check out if you're listening on iTunes and you want to go ahead and check out the YouTube version of this, I'll have a picture of a T-post on there. And maybe I'll throw a T-post on the social media as well.
Yeah. So that is the object that is going through the patient's head. And by the way, it's called a T-post because if you look at it, I guess
I've got a good way to explain this.
If you're looking at it from one end, it's about an inch across or so,
yeah.
And it forms this kind of T shape. Mm-hmm. Running down the length of it.
So if you're in the Wild West like I am in Kansas, this is what people make barbed wire fences out of.
Yeah.
Because if I'm looking at the correct T-post on my phone, it has ridges on it.
Yep.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So if you're
we call them knobs.
Cowboy,
call them knobs out here in Oregon.
West like me. This is what people make barbed wire fences out of as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Which I'm looking at these ridges and I'm like, oh, so that went through this guy's head. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has
He's
the ruffles.
Alive.
Yeah. So per Rutland, about 1 foot of the post is protruding from the front of the patient's head, and about 2 feet of the bar is sticking out of the back.
Ouch.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did ask them, I'm like, oh, did you measure? And they're like, I counted knobs. Because the knobs are about an inch spaced apart.
That's fair.
Hey, yeah. And 1 foot sounds better than they were 12 knobs out.
Gotcha.
So credit. All right, let's go to Rutland's primary exam. So we'll start with exsanguination. The patient is noted to have copious blood covering much of their face. And while there is blood that is coming down the pole, and there is continued bleeding, this is not blood that they are worried about the patient exsanguinating from. Mm-hmm. So it's just sort of noticed okay, the patient is still bleeding around the pole. Got it. The patient's airway is currently patent. The patient actually is sitting there and has a normal, regular breathing pattern, reported to be about 12 a minute with no increased effort or like, pauses.
Gotcha. Good chest rise, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The patient's visible skin, like they're on their hands and like in the spots of their head that are not covered in blood, actually have really good color. And the patient has a strong radial pulse at a rate of about 60 beats per minute.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think I have an idea for that, but okay.
Yeah. So multiple folks are approaching Rutland as they're doing this rapid assessment, and like they are being barraged with information, questions, and or demands. There is an EMT who is first on scene, who gives Rutland the details about the mechanism of injury. I'll get that in a second. There were volunteer chiefs present who are offering up different options for interventions, like, hey, do you want us to get a backboard? Do you want a KED? And in the Rod's case, they are screaming at Rutland that the patient needs C-spine.
Oh boy.
And get a backboard right now. And this, by the way, if this were a track on a CD, it would be skipping and just repeating this over and over again. Yeah.
So did you get hit with the head too?
Right.
All right. So let's give you the details of the mechanism of injury. Essentially, it's this. Gage was presumed to be working on a ladder on this building, but was found lying on the ground near the ladder. They were found laying on their left side, but their face was turned towards the ground with the T-post penetrating through the right skull, front to back. Prior to arrival, one of the firefighters actually had used portable cutters to cut the patient free of the T-post. And the patient was sat upright and put in a sitting position, because the bar, if you're hopefully everyone's imagining this the same way, the bar would have prevented them from laying supine.
Yeah. Do you know, were these hydraulic cutters? Because it might make a difference in a little bit, or were they using like a Sawzall?
That was my question.
I believe they were portable hydraulic cutters, not a Sawzall.
Which would actually be probably the tool of choice, because your other choices are going to be like Sawzall. You use a Sawzall, you'd have, you could use a torch too, I guess. And then you have I don't know why I'm blanking on it, but it's a circular saw. Then you have the large circ saw. And the problem with the Sawzall and the circ saw is that they're going to generate, not the Sawzall, not so much, but the circ saw is going to generate some heat as it cuts. Yeah. And so that's going to go down that metal.
So, you know what I'm going to point out, Chris, and one up you there. The blowtorch probably would too.
Yeah. No, well, exactly. Yeah. Right.
Just
very true. So I'm
giving you three options, two of which will definitely generate heat. I don't know, that giant flame.
Maybe.
Nah,
whatevs. Yeah. I'm no scientist, but the hydraulic cutters is basically like strong scissors, so it's doing a pinch and a cut, and so that's not going to generate heat.
Yeah. No, I actually had the same question about that, because like that would be, boy, adding layers to, it's like, hey man, all we got is the Sawzall.
Or torch.
It's like, okay, how do we prevent heat transfer up?
Right.
Because
maybe you cauterize as you go.
Don't worry, guys.
Hey, that happened on Grey's Anatomy, man.
Absolutely. And that's real.
That is so real.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. All right, let's see here.
I guess what I would be worried about, and I'm glad they did it before EMS got there, but I'm also like hesitant, because in my head, don't those saws create like a lot of vibration, or like they cause a lot of movement?
Yeah, the saws do, especially the Sawzall. I've used Sawzalls before, and every now and then, if the blade is maybe like there's a ding tooth or something in it, you'll be sawing along, and then that tooth will hit, and it will just catch, and it will just take whatever the material is and jerk it back and forth.
Right, so and now it's in this guy's brain.
Yeah,
so that would worry me.
Versus the hydraulic cutters, no problem.
Right.
Yeah.
That would worry me a lot.
Yeah.
And this happened prior to arrival, so we don't have the details specifically as to how this was done, but I'm imagining that everyone did their best to try and, keep the patient stable, because, you don't want to cut it and then have him, dropped a little bit.
Right.
I'm imagining like he was well supported in this venture, so that they could cut him and then put him in this upright position.
Yeah. Or he wasn't. We just don't know. We weren't there. So
yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Like, I want to say shout out to the fire crew, but I'm also like, ooh, I don't know the details. So for right now, I'm just going to keep believing that, like, shout out to this fire crew.
We'll assume the best. I like it. Assume the best in people. All righty.
But here's the problem, guys, is that, the story of exactly what's going on and information is really hard to hear over the chaos of the scene, with the, constant requests and, of course,
screaming guy.
Get me a backboard!
Yeah.
Get a backboard! Yeah.
Yeah.
This guy's causing me a lot of stress.
Yeah. So, Ashlyn, Chris, let's put you in Rutland's shoes. You've got this discordant scene of everyone saying everything to Rutland all at once.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a patient with 12 and 24 inches of metal penetrating out of either side of their skull.
Yeah.
You've got people talking to the patient. You've got people talking to you, asking questions about what they should do. What do you need? And we have the Rod yelling that the patient needs C-spine and a backboard. So what would you want to do at this point? And this time, Chris, we will start with you.
Scene control. I mean, it's...
I need a talking stick.
Yeah.
Like, right? I am holding the talking stick. No one else is talking.
No, but I mean, you're exactly right, and scene control can get difficult. But we do want to, address the life threats with this guy, which the main thing is probably going to be transport, but, we'll see how things go. But I think what we forget in scenes is that more so than your assessment ability, more so than your ability to perform interventions, your ability to work with people is going to be paramount. You can make or break scenes with your ability to work with people. And in this case, for the most part, my approach is very much like try and be friendly, inviting, and be the good guy as much as you can. But when someone's screaming at you and other people are yelling around, sometimes it's time for the big voice. And you don't want to get into a screaming match with somebody. You don't need to match their energy of anger, but you may need to start matching volume. And so when this comes down to this, it's like, hey, this guy is screaming for a backboard. Address him directly and just say, I'll start with, I might even start with, no, we will in a second, but we're not going to get it right now. Nobody dies from not being placed on a backboard. People do die from rushed mistakes. I'm going to have someone come and take over C-spine from you. I need you to get to the side. Now, if they don't, you could have an issue. I mean, I would like to think, and you can always make these scenarios be like, all right, well, what if they don't listen to you? Well, then I'll say it again. Well, what if they want to fight you? Okay, well, then I guess we're fighting. It could go like it could go that way. I don't know where PD is on this whole thing, but this guy holding C-spine and screaming just needs to be dealt with and just be like, hey,
scene is not secure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, scene is not secure. And it's like, hey, you need to be dealt with. I get that everyone's screaming. We're going to handle this. So you got to walk that line between getting control and getting in a fight. Because someone who's screaming like that, what we have to understand is that I'm presuming this guy's a responder of some sort. But this person,
I would hope.
Yeah, exactly.
I would really hope.
It's but this person's yelling for something that doesn't really matter. I mean, the evidence behind backboards is very limited. There's probably better evidence that they do more harm than good, flat backboards and all that stuff. And regardless of how you feel about backboards, again, screaming for a backboard doesn't really make any sense. And my other thing too is if this guy really believes he wants the C-spine to be in an inline neutral position, then just lay the guy flat where he's at, wait for the backboard to come in, and then roll him onto the backboard. And so this just kind of shows me that this person is just very disconnected. They don't really know what a backboard's for at this point, or they don't know why they want one.
I want to point out, like, they can't lay him flat. You know what I mean? Like, they could lay him on his side.
Oh, okay,
but they can't lay him flat because.
Well, then a backboard's not going to help that either.
And that, which okay.
Let's say get a KED
Ashlyn,
then.
It sounds like you had the same sort of thought there, where how would you like? And this is another perspective here, because I know how Chris would want to handle this, and I know how I would handle this.
Yeah.
I would yell and my voice would break, and and then
stop
I'd
now.
need an adult. Stop it. What have you found, like, on scenes like this? Have you gone on scenes like this where you've had to, like,
I can say I've never seen someone impaled, but I have been on some wrecks before where it's just chaos. I have fire yelling at me. I have PD yelling at me. I have bystanders that are like, this happened and this person hit this person. I'm like, okay, everyone stop. Like, sometimes it's simple, just everyone hush.
Right.
Like, that is what helps people. And you don't have to do it, like you said, in a mean way. You don't have to match their tone. You just have to match their volume. I'm serious. They cut the stick. Just make it the talking stick now. I am holding the talking stick.
Hand me that chuck over there. Yeah. I have the talking T-post.
Technically, the patient is holding the talking stick.
That's true. So he gets to talk the entire time.
You're not wrong.
And quite frankly,
not doing it,
if the patient did talk, that might be a good thing. So really.
Yeah.
All I'm thinking about, and ever since you said post, I don't know if you guys watched the Untold Stories of the ER like I did religiously as a kid. There's an episode where somebody ran into a light pole and it actually went through and through the mouth into his head. Oh, that's all I'm thinking about right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Wow.
A light pole. Jesus.
Yeah, it's insane. If I can find the screen grab of it, I'll email it to you. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So the only thing that I can think about as far as scene control is, like you said, just match their volume, don't match their tone. But I want to know why this guy is so concerned.
Right.
It sounds like they've got a good hand on him. There's manual C-spine being held. Yes, it is scary. This dude needs transported right away. But this also sounds like I need to stay and play type of situation where I need to stabilize this head. I need to make sure that airway is going to stay patent. I need to make sure there's no other injuries, because if this is something like there's a post here, is there anything else around the patient? He could have a smaller impale in his leg. He could have something that we're not seeing. So, you know what? I think I just say, hush.
Yeah.
Everyone stop.
So in terms of all right, so scene management is the priority. What would you, and granted, like, we have to qualify this, like, we're not there, we don't have the pressures,
sure,
this is not a system that anyone here is familiar with, but what would your kind of, like, shortly after that, what would your main treatment priorities be after having done this assessment? With currently patent airway, some bleeding from the pole, regular breathing, and good strong pulse, good skin color, good temperature.
Okay.
So besides, I want to know what his vital signs are. I want to see what his level of responsiveness is. I think you said it, but I know he's not responding, but is it to painful? Is it to any type of stimuli at all? As far as moving the patient, since he's in an upright position anyway, this sounds weird. I'd probably try to put a KED board on.
100%.
So at least I have that manual, or that C-spine there. So if I do roll him, he's in line of some sort.
Yeah.
And you can attach it to the head. So I can put it above the pole or under the pole. So where everything is in line, but I can still roll him and keep that C-spine intact.
Yeah. No, I agree. Right. I mean, and given where this pull is, I mean, it might, again, I'm not there, but, I think a KED or any shortboard that you carry may be good for this. The other thing that a KED has is handles. And it's going to make moving this patient, certainly a lot easier. And so I think when it comes down to this guy and I start looking at, I'm with Ashlyn, I wanted the vital signs, because what I'm curious about is we have a heart rate of 60 for somebody that otherwise should probably have a much higher heart rate. And there's two reasons that could be, right? We may have increased intracranial pressure. So I'm curious to see what his blood pressure is doing, because, we have a spear in the head. So I'm going to guess there could be some bleeding going on. And then the other thing is, do we have medications on board? What is this person's medical history? They're in their 20s. So typically the younger you are, the fewer medications you have, but every human's built differently. So there could be, do we have medications that are potentially suppressing those kind of things? I will say this. I agree with the Rod. That's the person yelling, right?
Yeah.
I agree with the Rod that, we do need, the guy's had a fall. There's mechanisms, plenty of mechanism to cause spinal damage, and we do need to figure out some way to stabilize that. So I don't disagree with that. I just disagree with how this person's going about it and the priority they're assigning to it. And so I think for this person, what I'm looking at now is we don't seem to have massive exsanguination. The signs we do have in terms of our A, B, and C say that the A, B, and C's are doing okay. So from what I can see at this point, my main concern is going to be head trauma and brain bleeding, which I don't consider myself the best paramedic. I am a decent paramedic. I still haven't figured out field brain surgery. So maybe they're teaching you guys that now. Ashlyn, I know you're a bit newer to it and your school's more up to date, but
I can say I have never dealt with that. So I don't think so.
Well, give it a shot.
Along with Rod, it sounds like I have plenty of hands too. It sounds like there is almost too many hands on this scene.
Good point.
Does he need a backboard? Yeah. But I have enough hands right now to where I can hold manual C-spine and let me do my job to where I can assess the patient quickly. So I don't need to move the patient right now.
No, we don't.
Right.
I think what we need to do. So I guess my priorities for this is really what he needs transport to a surgeon, as far as I can see so far, without having a set of vitals. And so my next steps are basically going to be like, okay, how do we package this guy in a controlled manner? Because the other thing too is you don't want to rush it. He has a stick potentially up against his brain. And so if we jostle that, we can kill him. So I think it's one of those things where we need to move towards transporting, but we need to be deliberate in our movements. Yeah. And then I also want someone to start getting vitals. So those are probably two simultaneous things that goes like, hey, let's start getting a set of vitals on him, and let's start, let's grab a KED, see if we can fix that to him. Let's start figuring out how we're going to get out of here and kind of let those two problems work together.
My next question is, are we going to think about when it comes to moving, are we going to think about backboard, scoop, or is there a basket available? Because from what you described, it sounds like we're going down into it. Yeah, just, it has wheels. Just push it down. It'll be fine.
Just let it roll all the way down there. Yeah. That's a good point.
Here's what happens, guys. I think you guys have both I think you're both of you, with some minor deviations are kind of on the same page with Rutland. Scene management, and then let's prioritize getting this patient safely out of this area and towards definitive care. Mm-hmm. So Rutland recognizes that this is a high chaos scene, and they take charge. They do exactly, Chris and Ashlyn, what you guys said, which is they raise their voice to essentially match or go above all the other people that are talking.
They claim the spotlight.
And they claim the spotlight. They say, enough. Everyone stop and lower your voices right now. Let's remain calm. And to their point, this really works well, except for the Rod, who continues to insist that the patient needs a backboard. And Chris, it's funny. We're like, well, what if they fight you? Well,
no shit.
I guess we're fighting. So, here's how this fight takes place. They continue to be sort of, again, we're getting this from one person, but I believe this person, and I think I would describe this as sort of a belligerence in a way. You know what I mean? They're going no, I'm not. This, I know what I'm doing. This patient needs a backboard. And one of the chiefs from one of the volunteer fire departments that's there, and there are 3 separate departments here that have responded to this, steps in and informs the Rod that Rutland is the highest level responder on this scene, and that everyone is going to follow their direction for patient care. And the Rod pushes back and says, and I quote, "No, sir, I am in charge of this patient until they are extricated."
False. Aren't they already extricated?
Okay, so who is Rod? Who is this guy?
Yeah.
Is he a firefighter? Is he one of the fire department volunteers? Who is he? Or did he just randomly show up? Did he come out of the woods, be like,
did he come out of a bar by chance?
So
because
he appears to be a firefighter. Okay. But you bring up a very
Are they in uniform?
They are in. Well,
are they in
it's
t-shirt?
A volunteer agency, so like t-shirt.
Okay.
So maybe, probably.
Gotcha.
But Chris, you asked the excellent question, and I'm so glad you did, which is, what they're already extricated. Like,
yeah.
They are not attached to the ground. Like they have been extricated.
Yeah.
So, huh?
Yeah. Like, yeah.
And that's kind of, and that's exactly what Rutland thought about this too. And what they do is they step back in and reiterate that they are in charge of the scene.
Yeah.
And they tell the Rod, we are not going to be putting this patient on a backboard, but we are going to keep them in an upright position, and we are going to put them directly onto the stretcher. So someone else makes another offer to grab a KED, but Rutland has a different idea. They instruct, because there are a plethora of people who are willing and able to help, and one who is trying to hurt, I guess.
Yeah.
Rod. They instruct 4 to 6 people to go up and grab the stretcher from its perch at the top of the embankment, and bring it down to the patient. The plan is to very carefully lift the patient onto the stretcher, maintaining this upright seated position. The crew sent to get the stretcher return, and 8 people essentially work to carefully orchestrate lifting the patient onto the stretcher, keeping them in this upright position, maintaining stability of the bar, and protecting C-spine. The stretcher is lowered to accommodate all of this and is kept in kind of a lowered position so that everyone, all of this group of people can collectively bring the stretcher carefully up to where the ambulance is.
I want to say this is actually this is kind of some strong work here. So one of the things that a lot of agencies will now also consider a gurney mattress to be able to provide adequate stabilization for the spine. Now, typically the caveat there is that the person has to be supine. And I think I'm on board with kind of everything that's going on here. And I know people might pick it and be like, yeah, but in the upright position, there's compression on the spine. It's not the best. What I think
compression on his brain right now. Like,
exactly.
That's the main concern.
And it's kind of one of those things is we have to think that bar is heavy and it's anchored into the guy's skull. And as we switch positions, that pressure of that bar is going to change. And it's kind of one of those things where right now I have a guy with a good respiratory drive and I have a lot of things going on. I don't want to mess with him that much, really, because my worry is, I almost feel like he's a human landmine, right? And so moving this guy can change things drastically. And right now, I have him in an upright position. We can hold manual C-spine. We can move the patient to a gurney, and it's one of those things where I feel like, if we're like, hey, we got to have him supine, or we got to, do this, that, or the other thing. I think you have to ask yourselves, like, are you checking a box or are you doing what you think is clinically appropriate? And it kind of comes back to like, and this is a little bit of a tangent here, but you guys ever run a call where you have a patient who just does not like the C-collar? And they're tearing at it. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think I've met one person that likes the C-collar.
Yeah, exactly. But then
I don't often go on calls where someone's like, you know what would I really need, man? Just a little C-collar.
Yeah.
Come on.
Ooh, this is comfy. Can I keep this? This is going to help my sleep.
Do you have what do they call it? I'm like, oh, you want some fentanyl? No. It starts with a C.
Oh, guy, people are now calling 911 with fake stuff. Oh, I think I hurt my neck. You guys got one of those C-collars?
Yeah.
But anyway, you're right. The C-collars, their goal is to maintain an inline neutral position. So if you have a patient that keeps fighting your C-collars, trying to pull it off, it always cracks me up to see like responders try and fight them to get it back on. And it's kind of like, yeah, how much C-spine movement are you doing right now by fighting to get the C-collar on? You're adding movement. And so it's one of those things where if taking off the C-collar causes the patient to relax and not move, then that might be the best way to stabilize the C-spine. Because remember, the goal is not to apply a C-collar. The goal is to stabilize the cervical spine. That's the goal. Yeah. And so you achieve that however you're going to achieve it. C-collar is a tool to do that. So that's just kind of one of the things I want to keep in mind. And I kind of see that going on here. The goal is to not cause further injury to this patient. And they're going to achieve that the best way they can, because this guy has a lot of potential for further injury by virtue of just moving his head in position that can cause further severe injury. And so I think they're right on the money with what they're doing so far.
I do want to reiterate,
my one question is, if we're going to sit this guy up, he fell 20 feet.
Mm-hmm.
I know we have an obvious injury to the head. Do we have a stable pelvis? Because if we're sitting someone upright, we're using the KED board as it actually should be. Most people use a KED board for actually a pelvis stabilizer. Is that pelvis okay to be sitting up? Because we don't want to add pressure on it anymore. Because he could be filling a whole pelvis full of blood right now.
Well, and I think you bring up a really good point. This is actually something we hit in our last episode, is that, we do XABC right off the bat, right? Because everything within XABC, that's your 30-second to 2-minute things that have to be fixed in that immediate time frame, right? The immediate life threats. But what we often forget is that an unstable pelvis, open femur fractures, those kind of things, those can all contribute to ABC life threats. All of those things can. And so that is why you bring up a really good point, is that part of a rapid trauma assessment right off the bat to check for that stability is indeed part of that ABC, specifically C. But it is indeed part of that ABC, examining the chest, those kind of things. So right on the money. I mean, I think that's more questions we have right there. But what other injuries do we have aside from the pole in the head?
Yeah, no, and those are really fair points. We will get to the additional assessments here in a moment. But I just kind of want to reiterate two things. So I don't think the KED was used because I think the KED, and it's one of those items that takes up a lot of time to put on. And also like, how well does it achieve what it's intended to achieve, if that makes sense?
I like the handles.
That's true.
Yeah, the handles. I mean, if you want to put a handled vest on somebody, like, the KED is your money.
Yeah.
But
and the more I'm thinking about it, the KED comes all the way up back behind the head.
Right.
The pole is probably in the way, so you have to fold down the KED.
Yeah. I think that's really 100%. On the money there. But like, the other part of this is like, again, the rod, and everyone is right to worry about C-spine. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, at this ambulance company I worked at, and Chris, you were there too.
Yeah. This is a dream you had.
They changed, like, it used to be like, hey, any penetrating head trauma, full spinal precautions. But they changed that because they went like, hey, the actual incidence of, like, if somebody gets shot in the head or stabbed in the head, like, the likelihood of a C-spine injury is lower. Like, it's actually, like, unless there's additional mechanism things to consider, like, don't worry about doing that. But in this case, we have a guy who fell. They fell from a significant amount of distance, and they hit their head. And I'm imagining their head is not paper mache. Like, they hit it with enough force to go down a pole. So I think there is definitely some, like, the mechanism for a potential spinal injury is definitely present in this patient. So like, I think, again, the concern is very valid with this patient, and wanting to keep everyone stable, and not move the bar and try and get them into this, I think there are two kind of competing values of, like, hey, we want to protect C-spine, and typically we would lay this person flat, and and they can be on the stretcher, and that's safe. But at the other time,
at this point,
you don't have that option. And I think this is sort of one of those where people are like, fuck, I can't do this thing right without doing this other thing wrong. Like, how do I? And it's like, well, then you do the best you can. And if the best you can do is have a fucking dude hold manual C-spine,
then that's what you got.
Yeah. Like, good job.
Well,
yeah.
That's what I tell the students, because right now they're going over, like, assessment and trauma. And they're like, well, assessment, like, NREMT says to do this. The book says to do this. And I'm like, yeah, but your patient's not always going to be perfectly laying flat where you can roll them onto a backboard. the protocols are amazing. The NREMT is awesome at teaching you guys how to do this or showing you and telling you how to do this. But you're not always going to follow line by line, word by word, what these things tell you.
Yeah.
You have to do what's absolutely best for your patient.
Agreed.
Also, my second question, how the heck did they stabilize this pole? Because I'm sitting here thinking, I could do this. I could do that. But what are my other options? Like, do I just wrap this thing in like 100 pieces of gauze and hope it stays?
So the stabilizing was done manually.
Someone's just holding it.
Okay, so they just held it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So there is somebody there that is holding it. Now, like, granted, it's not really moving on its own. Like, it's, this is not a, this is not a like, oh God, hard job. It's, sliding back and forth. It's in there.
Yeah.
But there is somebody who is
But like
holding...
Chris said, it's actually a pretty heavy pull. Like, it can move. The pressure is going to change when you move that patient.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, you could put gauze around it. You could do this, but it's really not going to do a whole lot.
So the caboose has an auto load stretcher system, which, while phenomenal, it does come with an occasional downside. One of them being that it can be difficult to get the stretcher to load if there's like uneven terrain, like you would have with a dirt parking lot. So as they try to load the patient's stretcher into the auto load arms, the stretcher actually isn't tall enough based on like the way that the ambulance is sitting. But don't worry, the rod is all over it. The rod, who has maintained...
Who is this guy?
Just get rid of this guy.
Maintains C-spine.
Oh God.
Is in the ambulance and once again raises their voice and yells at Rutland that they need to lower the auto load system arms. Yeah, the auto load arms to allow the stretcher to get loaded in. And Rutland again goes like, stop yelling. You are not familiar with the equipment. You do not know what you're talking about.
Oh, man.
They then turn and tell the rest of the providers, hey, guys, we need to lift the stretcher up about an inch so that it can get loaded into the slots that it needs to go.
Yeah.
And by the way, that works perfectly.
Oh, what do you know? The person who has the equipment knows how to work it? That is...
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. I got beef with this rod guy.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
At this point, I would imagine PD probably heard this over the scanner, and I bet PD is probably on their way there. I would hope at least.
I feel like you're just
thinking
thinking
PD works around us. Like, they listen to our scanners. We can hear theirs. We can hear theirs, or they can hear ours. They've probably already been en route.
Mm-hmm.
But like, can we move this guy to a PD car, like a quad squad car? Because him and I are about to get into it.
Yeah.
hey man, there's actually another patient who needs C-spine over there, like, real quick.
I heard they don't have a backboard on him yet. Should get over there. Yeah.
Like, PD would be great right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Agreed.
So the patient gets loaded into the ambulance and the rod sits in the airway seat holding C-spine, and they have the posterior section of the bar essentially resting across their shoulder. So they are supporting C-spine and the bar. The student is also in the ambulance, and they are told to sit at like the far end of the bench. Another volunteer firefighter jumps into the back, and they notify Rutland that they're actually an RN at a local urgent care, and they calmly offer to assist.
Gotcha.
Now, here's the thing, Ashlyn, you and I kind of on the same page here. I'm like, are you really a nurse? Who are you? But Rutland actually recognizes them and comments
that's good.
Like, the giveaway is that this person has a very calm demeanor, and they are asking about equipment that they clearly are familiar with.
Nice.
That actually makes me really happy, because the very first car wreck I ever worked as a medic, there was an RN there.
Oh, no.
I ended up learning this patient was literally a hospice RN. And no offense to hospice RNs, they're amazing, but they had no idea what was going on.
It's not their wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's not their wheelhouse.
No, it's not at all. And they were like trying to yell at this patient, trying to tell me that I need to take them to the hospital. I'm like, well, no shit. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
But you are not helping literally at all. So it actually makes me really happy that this RN is like willing to be like, this is not my patient.
Now you said this RN is also a volunteer firefighter though, correct?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I believe they are. Yeah.
Yeah. Props to this RN.
Yay.
Yeah. So this reassured that like, hey, this is actually a person who, unlike the rod, would actually be a real asset and not just an ass. But more ass jokes.
There
Nailed it. All right. So the patient's condition has not changed. They are still breathing regularly. They do still have a strong radial pulse. So next steps, you guys. You've got a patient loaded into the ambulance. And by the way, some of the fire crew have already left to set up an LZ, which is about 10 minutes down the road. What are your priorities now?
But before that, we're going to talk once again about today's sponsor, and that is Jump Medic. We really want to thank Jump Medic for sponsoring this episode and others. Without them, a lot of what we do wouldn't be possible. So thank you, Jump Medic, for sponsoring this. And let's talk a little bit about what you get in the Jump Medic Pro. So the Jump Medic Pro is absolutely loaded with good stuff that I personally would recommend to anybody who wants a first aid kit that they can carry around with them in the field in a compact package and actually save somebody's life. The biggest thing I love the most is the tourniquet that it comes with. Now, this is the very same tourniquet that is on the TOCCC's board of recommended tourniquets. It is a tourniquet that is most commonly carried by EMS agencies, police forces, and military forces around the world. On top of that, and something that is oddly unique to Jump Medic, it seems, is you have enough equipment in here to accurately check vital signs. You have a stethoscope on this side, there's a blood pressure cuff packed in here, it even has a CBG kit on the inside, something that Spencer will never use. So as I open this, I'm going to show you actually my personal absolute favorite thing about the whole kit, and that is the bag itself, which is actually improved in the version 2. So keep in mind, this is actually the version 1. But both kits open similarly in the sense that you just simply grab the top, grab the back, and pull. And the whole kit opens right up. I still get a little giddy every time it happens because it opens right up. And the best part about it is it's a lay flat design, okay? The whole kit, just in case you can't see it, let me move some of the stuff here. Go in the full-on demo ShamWow mode here. But yeah, the whole kit just lays flat like this. And I love lay flat kits because with a lay flat kit, you don't have to worry about trying to reach down past other things and blindly fumble around and find stuff. Everything sits right in the kit, just like this, and you can easily get through it. Everything has a spot. It's all strapped down. Oh, and another thing I didn't mention earlier, it even comes with a pulse oximeter. But on top of that, it has everything you could ever possibly want. From advanced vital sign monitoring, to trauma dressings, to BSI, body substance isolation equipment, to chest seals are even in this thing. So, like I said, this is one awesome kit. It's even got a ring cutter. Wow. Anyway, it's one awesome kit right now. It's going on for an absolutely fantastic deal at jumpmedic.com. So head on over to jumpmedic.com. Check out the Jump Medic Pro. It's on sale for $219, which is mind-blowing. And you can even check out the Jump Medic Pro version 2 for $299 right now. And also check out their subscription service to help you keep this thing stocked year-round. So once again, check it out at jumpmedic.com.
I heard earlier like actually you mentioned wanting to do kind of a more full assessment and make sure like we're not distracted by the head wound when there's like a knife in the guy's back.
So is this patient responsive literally at all? Like painful, deep, painful stimuli, nothing?
So not yet. They have not seen any response from the patient at this point, but they have not really done like a painful response kind of assessment yet.
Okay.
So,
that would probably be my first priority because like you said earlier, the heart rate is 60, but I don't have a blood pressure yet. Do I need to start any type of treatment? Because the body is going to be freaking out no matter what, even if they're not showing it externally. So what's my level of responsiveness? Because that'll actually tell me kind of what's going on inside the body. If they're completely unresponsive and then I get a blood pressure that's like 260 over 160, that's going to tell me exactly how far this patient is going down the road. Like how far they've already progressed into this head injury.
Yeah, probably about 10 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I think for me, I'm just thinking in terms, I mean, again, like what does the patient need from me right now? There is still, and I'm sure there's more assessment coming. So more assessment needs to be done. So I'm same page as Ashlyn there. I do want to see a more head to toe. I am curious about that pelvis. I am curious about the blood pressure, respiratory rate, SaO2, all those things. I'm curious about those things. But really, if there's an LZ that's going to be about 10 minutes down the road, for that fixed wing, I'm just kidding. But it's going to be about 10 minutes down the road. At this point, I would probably start thinking it's like, hey, let's start making some things happen. Let's start getting towards that LZ. Because you said the helicopter had like a 30-minute flight time anyway.
Yeah.
Well, let's just start going to the LZ. So let's start heading to the LZ,
okay.
and then patient's going to need IV access as well. So probably get someone started IV, and then complete that assessment. And until we have more of an assessment, there's not much I want to do. The other thing I'm thinking of, though, in this case is what about this patient's airway? And not being there, this is where the challenge comes up. So right now, the patient really appears to have an airway, right? I mean, we don't see any huge issues with the airway. It was clear the patient's breathing. The skin looks good. I don't know how well they're satting, but they don't really appear to be in respiratory distress right now.
No, it sounds like their breathing is pretty
Fine.
good. Like you said, it was 12 and unlabored. So
yeah. So when it comes to
they're not to the point of like Cheyenne Stokes yet, which tells me that their brain injury is actually like they're not down a bad path just yet.
Right. Or like buyouts.
So like I'm going to worry about their airway, but I'm also like, okay, their airway's good for now.
Right.
Like I can toss, well, I can't really toss a non-rebreather on their head because they got something.
No, you get creative. Get some tape.
More on that in a second.
Okay.
Yeah. More on that in a second. Yeah.
But so that kind of brings, so I always have two questions. So when it comes to managing an airway, you got what's the airway like currently? In this case, it's fine. And then the next question is, well, what could it be like? Where can this go? Yeah, non-existent. And so when we have head injuries, I really worry about vomiting, because it's kind of a thing that happens. And so that would be kind of my worry. But here's the second thing is this guy has a spear in his head. And so I have to figure out how do I intubate that? And, the other thing we always ask is how hard is a patient going to be to intubate? Because remember,
tomahawk.
Yeah, the tomahawk. Exactly. But you got to remember these things is that when we go to intubate somebody, one of the big things that we've been preaching on this show and that we preach in our actual practice is that, resuscitate before intubate. And that is that we need to be able to make sure that this patient can handle intubation because you said something perfectly. And that is, hey, your body freaks out and your body freaks out when you go to intubate. When you suddenly paralyze somebody and you give them sedatives, the sedatives help not freak out. But, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And so my concern about intubating this guy with a spear in his head, how well will I be able to manage the problems that arise with intubation? Will I even be able to do that? Like, will I be able to actually put the head in the position I need to intubate? And so those are factors that are gonna play in that may steer me away from intubation. Anyway,
I'm going to plug the World's Okayest Medic podcast right now because he literally released an episode 2 days ago called Resuscitative RSI. And it's an amazing episode all about that. Like, how do I treat my patient before I stick that tube in their throat? Yeah. And it's amazing because I said the body freaks out. Yeah. He may not look it on the outside, but his body is internally freaking out. Yeah. And when we were talking to the medic students the other week about intubating an RSI, and they're like, well, when do I give sedatives? When do I give paralytics? I'm like, always. Yeah. Like you always want to because that sedative, he may be unresponsive right now. His body's not unresponsive. Sure. Like his mind is still freaking out and that sedative is going to calm it down. So you won't have vomiting. You won't have a heart rate that spikes because it's freaking out. Right. And the other thing too is that patients, it's always interesting what patients can actually hear and remember later on in their complaint cards. Correct. That is very correct. Be aware. So anyway.
Yeah. All right. So guys, a lot of things happen in kind of a short amount of time. The patient does get placed on a non-rebreather mask, which in this case, Ashlyn, you noted would probably be more of a puzzle than you might appreciate. Especially when you factor in that everyone's stuff is all covered in blood at this point. So they did, by the way, go around the back and forward because they were like, well, if we pull the line through, probably won't be able to ever get it back. So they did manage to get the non-rebreather around from the back side, which nice. Additionally, the patient gets placed on a cardiac monitor, BP cuff, pulse oximeter, and between Rutland and the RN, 2 bilateral 18-gauge IVs are secured in the patient's AC. They transport start transporting pretty quickly. I believe right after the IVs are established to the LZ, and their total on scene time is 17 minutes. We do get our first.
That sounded amazing.
That's pretty good.
Such props to Rutland, because I probably would have spent 17 minutes still staring at the patient. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm probably I'm guessing that factors in the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. Pull it out.
That's amazing.
So you were cooking with oil and
Yeah.
All right. So by the way, thank you. By the way, the lines are connected to fluid. I think that's LR. I did not ask if they were like running wide open or
it's bags of cat vomit.
TKO, but yeah, bags of cat vomit.
Yep.
So here we go. Here's our vitals. Unresponsive, but like, by the way, as these interventions were being done, like Rutland also started their secondary assessment. I just felt like it would be very difficult to kind of put that in that order. So just know that secondary assessment items are happening as this is all taking place. So what they did find is that the patient's unresponsive, but they did exhibit some spontaneous flexion of their left hand, but they would not do it on command. They would not respond verbally. They were GCS, except like, oh, their hand moved.
So it sounds like they're posturing, possibly.
I mean, you go.
Okay.
I don't think that's posturing. I think it's just like, oh, their hand spontaneously moved. And
so that'd be
stopped.
flexion then.
Yeah.
I guess. So they have spontaneous flexion. So we're looking at a 1 for eyes, 1 for verbal, and then what would that be? A 3 for motor?
I think
you're easily going with like GCS of 3 because they are not responding to anything else. They're not responding to any stimuli. Like they tried to do a nail bed pain response. The patient wouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
But they just noticed that like, oh, hey, look at that. The patient spontaneously moved, one time. So
okay.
I'd say a 3 is still safe, but
I mean, so the 3 is abnormal flexion. And so, I mean, you're right. But technically that whole category is called motor response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if they're not really responding and it's just like, oh, I saw their hand move twice. Like, how much can you really count it?
I mean, but also, I mean, at this point, who cares? A 5 is still really, really bad. Like it's okay. GCS is bad in K. That's
Yeah, exactly. All right. So blood pressure is 131/78. The heart rate is 58 sinus brady on the monitor. Respirations are 12 a minute, and the patient is 100% on a non-rebreather mask.
Sorry, what was the blood pressure one more time?
131/78.
Thank you, sir.
Now again, some of these secondary assessment items were started along with the interventions. For example, like the pupils were checked as the NRB was getting placed. Like a lot of the head assessment was done up there, and so on and so forth. But again, like for clarity's sake, I'm keeping it all right here. So with the head, there is crepitus around the sites of impalement. The left eye was opened and the pupils are 3 millimeter and reactive, but the Rutland was unable to open the right eye just because of like the positioning of the post and some swelling, preventing them from being able to visualize that pupil. So that happened. They did, by the way, when they started a secondary assessment, they did assess that again, and there were no changes in the eye. There is blood that's kind of pooled in the right ear, and it's presumed to have gone there from like the other external bleeding.
Okay.
There is no blood noted in the left ear. They did.
So we're assuming that blood in the ear is from like dripping down. We're not assuming it's coming out of the ear.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yep. There's no visible bleeding. It's just kind of pooled. I guess is the description. They did cut off the patient's shirt. The chest was palpated. The chest is intact. There are no signs of visible trauma. The abdomen is soft and unremarkable. The pelvis was assessed and found to be stable, unremarkable.
Cool.
The shoes and socks were cut off the patient, and pulses are present in both feet. Good color, good temperature. Here's another interesting piece. Rutland did go to cut the patient's pants and commented, like, man, these pants are like tough to cut through. And the patient giggles.
The rod.
That's one of the things where I would sit there and be like, did that actually happen? Like, who just laughed?
Yeah. Who made a joke?
Yeah. And so they try and engage him again, but he's not able to respond beyond that. So that was kind of the one response. The patient's mouth, they do notice that blood is still dripping down the pole, and that some of that blood is entering the patient's mouth. So they do orally suction the patient as they're on their way to the LZ. Just to make sure that airway stays clear. So they arrive shortly after their secondary assessment is complete, and it's 11 minutes later to the LZ. The patient is still unresponsive. The blood pressure is now 113 over 81. The heart rate is 91, and the patient is 100% on room air with respirations still at 12. So as they arrive, the medic and RN from Bing Air open the rear doors and then do what I would totally do, which is pause and go, huh. Oh.
Yeah. Interesting.
So understandable. Yeah. So they quickly enter the ambulance, and they quickly tell Rutland, like, hey, we can't take this patient with this much post protruding from their head.
That was going to be my next comment. They're like, oh no,
dang it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. But luckily, the volunteer who had originally cut the post is present at the LZ, and they still have their portable cutters. And,
they just keep them in the pocket at all times.
Yeah.
Good.
This volunteer department is earning that ice cream that's going to come later.
Yeah, they are. That's so good.
So he enters the cab, and the rod tries to tell the firefighter where
is he still
exactly
here?
they're going to cut.
Like, I thought we left him on scene.
Yeah.
No.
The one person you
in.
want to leave on scene, like purposely, he's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, don't, guys! It gets so much better. Don't worry. Don't worry.
I hear you say that.
What's next? Does he try to like hop in the helicopter with them?
He's gonna fly.
Is he gonna be the one flying the helicopter?
Should have pulled more collective on that landing.
Yeah, a little more right pedal, guys. A little more right pedal. So he tells them, like, you're gonna cut it here. They quickly get railroaded by Rutland, who goes, no, actually, I want you to cut right about 4 inches away from like the patient's head.
Yeah.
So the post and the patient are kept very still throughout this whole process, and the cut goes successfully. The Bing crew tell Rutland, like, hey, we're going to RSI the patient in this ambulance before we depart and load him into the helicopter. They ask about TXA, and Rutland retrieves a vial. Rutland says, like, hey, I can infuse this gram while you guys set up, but they go, no, we'll go ahead and administer the meds. So,
okay.
And I point that out because, it'll come up later. They found it kind of weird, like, hey, I can help you guys. But like, they're sort of like, they wouldn't let me do much more. Like, I'm not upset. I just thought that was odd.
Yeah.
So anyway,
it is, because I usually take help when I can get it on scene.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, hold on, you're willing to do a thing, so I don't have to do it? Yeah, 100%.
The only time that I think I really like as a flight medic land is that I'm very particular about when it comes to intubation and how I like to do those things. And so, but I'll still accept help, all those kind of things. But, I may be a little bit more like, okay, you're going to do that. We're going to do that. We're going to do that kind of stuff. But, interesting.
Yeah. So Bing Air uses rock and ketamine as their induction agents. And we already have said it, but it's worth saying again. This is going to be a difficult airway.
Yeah.
The patient is kept in this like 90-degree sitting position. The intubating Bing Air crew member essentially is going to be going, they insert the blade into the patient's mouth, coming from like over the top of both the rod and the patient. I realize I didn't ask if they used a video laryngoscope, but I'm going
That
to
was my
presume.
question.
Yeah.
I'm going to presume it's video. So it is now.
Well, and we
canon.
haven't really, and maybe we'll talk about it later, but we haven't really talked much about pre-oxygenation and what we're doing before we intubate.
They had the non-rebreather on though.
Yeah,
they did have the non-rebreather on, but but
true.
This is a fair point.
I'll have my rant later. You get to see a live rant, Ashlyn.
So they quickly.
No one has a blood sugar yet, though, and I just want to point that out.
Oh man! Did you even ask for one, Spencer?
I didn't ask.
No.
You didn't.
Yeah. That was the problem all along.
That was it.
That's why he fell. He was on a ladder. He started to get lightheaded because his blood sugar was low.
So it's funny you say that, but there's a very famous call locally in our area where a guy wandered out into traffic because his blood sugar was low, was smacked. No one checked his sugar, got to the ER. They checked it and it read low. And the guy had got some sugar and he was doing okay. Yeah. So anyway, we'll move on.
Yep.
But, yeah.
So they quickly abandon this attempt because they note that the patient needs suctioning. The patient's mouth is suctioned again, and they BVM the patient prior to, a secondary attempt. And this is difficult because P. Gage has a blood-covered beard, and
they always have a beard.
Face.
Yeah.
Well,
always have a beard.
In this case, I'm going like, yeah, but a little beard might provide some traction. With all
the blood.
Everything else is covered in blood.
Yeah.
The last person I intubated, I kid you not, it was like a Santa beard.
Oh,
and
wow.
it was
Nice.
Oh my gosh, it was horrible. Like everything was just sliding. I ended up having to use the video because I had to physically pull back all of this hair. And between my hands with the blade and the tube, my partner was holding back this beard. I'm not a facial hair person.
Gotcha.
I can't do it.
Just have your EMT down
while.
at the feet. Yeah. Just have your EMT down at the feet. Like, hey, I need you to pull traction.
Gotcha.
It's true.
Full traction on the beard.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So this is a difficult process because, everything's covered in blood. So it's slippery. The patient's got a beard. And they are off to the side of the patient because and the patient's also sitting upright. So, and they're off to the side. So they're trying to get a seal and get all that. And to their credit, they noted, they're like, this was really hard to get a seal, but I was able to do that.
Good.
And I was able to deliver breaths, get visible chest rise, and the patient's really compliant with that BVM. So they decide going forward, like, hey, let's lower the patient to maybe 30 to 45 degrees instead of this 90-degree angle. And so they do that. And being air who's intubating can't pass the tube initially in this attempt, they do have success getting the bougie through the cords and then passing the ET over the top.
Good.
So they do secure a 7.0 tube. But there's a problem. The patient doesn't appear to have lung sounds on the left side.
Ruh-roh.
So thinking that they might have main stemmed the tube is deflated and retracted slightly before being reinflated. And the patient's chest is auscultated again, and there is no change. Now, this generates an interesting question from the other being air crew member who asks, okay, hey, what were the lung sounds before intubating? Which no one actually got. So they're like, yeah, we actually, that I don't know.
But they saw both chest rise and fall. They saw equal, right?
Yeah.
So you just don't have lung sounds. That is interesting.
Yeah. So they decide, you know what, we're going to secure the tube at this point because they have good capnography, no epigastric sounds, and they have, positive chest rise. So vitals at this time are entitled CO2 ranging from 40 to 45. Blood pressure is 160 over 100. Heart rate is 60. The patient's being bagged about 10 times via BVM, and they have 100% FiO2. So at this point, the patient is packaged by the flight crew, and they are, essentially getting them ready to load into the helicopter. And I know everyone wants to know this. What happened with the rod? So
like
initially,
the Rod, or was it like Rod? Like, is he still there? Like, which Rod are we talking about right now?
okay, well,
Yeah,
to be clear, the impaled object is the T-post, and the
You're not
Rod
wrong.
is
Yeah.
he's the dude, you know, like it's the dude, or the antithesis of, yeah. So the Rod, of course, escorted the patient all the way out, like through the loading process into the
Jesus.
helicopter. Rutland initially was hoping that their student would be able to come help and participate, because they were kind of like, they at some point took over supporting the T-post. But they notice as they exit the ambulance that the student has this like really far away look and doesn't seem to be responding to everyone appropriately. It takes like a couple of like, hey, Powerball,
Yeah.
student Powerball, and they're like, oh, what?
Yeah. And it turns out he also had a rod in his head. And
Yeah. Yeah.
Is your blood sugar low?
Yeah.
Like, do we need to check your blood sugar?
Well, so here's the thing. They were going like, oh man, like this is a really traumatic call, which it
is
by all accounts
Yeah.
is. This is the call. You're like, what was your day? And it's like, I don't know. I ran 12 calls, but I can only remember one of them.
Yep.
This
This
is
would be
probably
the-
like, we always talk about like students are the white clouds. Like, nothing is
Sure.
ever going to happen with the students. But
Yeah.
this is almost the call where it's like, oh gosh, do I even want a student on this call? Like, I want you to
Right.
see this, but
Yeah.
no offense, I would probably forget the students even there. Like, there is
Yeah.
so much going on, and I would feel so bad, but it's also like the student would probably think this is either the coolest thing ever, or it's going to be the thing that gets them out of EMS before they even start.
I think the hard part about
Well,
a call like this too
yeah.
is, the hard part about this call to me isn't, maybe even to the student, isn't necessarily that the patient was a difficult patient. They are. But it's that the lack of control that was on scene, not because of anything that Rutland did, but just because of the Rod and how chaos the scene was. It can be a little bit almost disheartening, because you expect to be able to, all right, we're going to go in on scene. I'm going to start assigning roles and all this stuff. And then it's like, no, it's utter chaos. And the majority of the call
100%.
here, is fighting chaos, and to have people come at you.
Nothing is ever as perfect as an NREMT scenario. And that's what they're used to in class. So like, I feel like this would be a call to literally make or break a student, sadly.
Yeah.
This is either I want to stay in EMS, this is what I am made to do, or it is okay, this was a lot.
Yeah.
And this is what's going to probably tell me I need to step back. Maybe this is not the career for me, type of thing, which is really sad, but they're not an EMS provider yet, so it might be like perfect timing, sadly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the good news is, it turns out in follow-up that they weren't traumatized by the call. They had this thing where they got extremely car sick on the way up to the LZ, going down the
Oh,
road,
no.
in the back, which, by the way, is completely understandable.
Yeah.
The minute I get car sick, like, I'm sorry, you're gonna fucking die, because I like that trumps all else in my world.
I don't get motion sick. I never have.
I don't either. It smells for me. If I catch a whiff of something, I'm out. I'm
Yeah.
done. I gotta take a minute. I gotta step back.
Oof, that now my brain stopped. Hang on, really sweet, guys.
So did the patients. Don't worry.
Yeah, now we're all good. Turns out I have a rod in my head. All right. Anyway, I'm sorry, Spence. Go ahead. Move on.
All right. So after this, so they load the patient. The patient departs. And after this, Rutland requests that, like, hey, all the responders who are on the scene, who would like should meet back up at that building area for a debrief. And what their goal is, like, they want to express their gratitude to everyone on scene for being so, like, calm and cool.
Except the Rod.
Except that one guy, but like,
Rod needs to stay away.
Yeah.
Rod is not invited to the powwow.
oh, just you wait.
Yeah.
And also to go like, hey guys, like, in recognition that, like, hey, this is the first time that this person in 24 years of experience has ever gone on a head impalement.
Yeah, probably the last time too.
They've gone on an ass impalement.
True.
But this, you know, like this is probably this is a once in a lifetime call for all of these people as well. And, you know, like we got to make sure that they know what help is available, you know, because like there's stuff that just kind of sticks with you.
This is a crew that definitely deserves recognition as well. Like from what I'm hearing, except for Rod,
right?
This crew has done an absolutely amazing job. Like this call probably could not have gone smoother with any other crew.
Lots of challenges to go on.
Yeah. So they all gather about, you know, it sounds like, you know, between 30 and 40 people. And 5 minutes into the debrief, after Rutland has sort of, you know, said their piece and acknowledged everybody, the Rod steps forward to make their presence known. And I don't know what their voice sounds like. I know somewhat of what they said, but here's my impression.
I just want to let you know, my brothers and sisters, that I was a firefighter in blank state. And I know what it is that you do.
What?
Yeah. By the way, this quickly led to an exodus of a lot of the people who were there. They're like, all right, well, I've heard enough.
Yeah.
So
it would.
That's the call minus some follow-up. I do have some follow-up. So listen, Burlington, you know, played double aces, essentially. Like, this guy's dead. And I think that is a fair, I mean, that's a fair bet, but the river led to different results. The double ace bet did not win.
Yeah.
The patient was diagnosed ultimately with a penetrating head injury, acute blood loss, cerebral venous sinus thrombosis.
Okay.
But they underwent surgery and ultimately did survive, got transferred to a neuro center, and were at last update able to walk and to speak to some limited extent. The patient did not have a pneumothorax from the information Rutland got, and there's no cervical spinal injury noted. So additionally, we learned that the Rod was not affiliated with any of the volunteer fire departments present. There are 3 of them, which I think may have led to, you know, the presumption that he was with the fire department. But no, turns out he was just some guy from a...
What I can guarantee you is that all those volunteer firefighters immediately were like, was he one of ours? We need to go check. We need to go make sure that he was not one of ours, because that guy was...
Wait, so this dude was just some random dude off the street?
Yeah. Oh, no. Well, no, Ashlyn. He was a
former...
Yeah. He was a fellow brother.
But like, he's not affiliated with the 3 services that are there.
No.
Is what I'm hearing.
No. Homeboy's just there.
Then why was he on scene so long? Like,
because he was in command until extrication, Ashlyn. That's why.
What extrication?
Exactly.
That was already done before anybody got there.
Until he was extricated into the aircraft.
Oh God,
he was in charge.
Oh man, that was really quick.
Why did everyone let him stay on scene so long? Because like, until this point, we're under the impression he showed up with fire crews, or he showed up like POV in his own personal vehicle. Well, why didn't anyone notice that he's not affiliated?
He may have been with the, you know, like he may have been on site at this building, you know, involved with this occupation, or, you know, maybe I have no idea how he ended up there. But I think there's a, you know, like the problem is if somebody uses enough of, you know, like if you use the terminology, because we've all gone on responders who are kind of, you know, like you're like, I wish you didn't volunteer here, but like you're not bad enough to where like anybody
I can't write you up.
Like, can't write you up.
Yeah.
And so like you're gonna, you know, like there are people like that. And I think when you have multiple departments responding, everyone, and you know, like you're not saying anything like, hey, we need the D spine, you know, and they're like, well, who is this guy? You know, like he's saying the right words.
Right.
Know?
That's what I said at the beginning. I was like, who is actually requesting this helicopter? Because that's not something
good pickup, by the way.
Not everyone does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's just like everyone kind of assumes he's with some other department, and nothing triggers that recognition that like, oh, he's not really Yeah.
So
Oh, that just makes me so angry.
yeah. Well, and I think when it comes to figuring out who the rod is and why they're on scene, you also gotta. Gosh, it's one of those things where how destructive is this dude going to be? And are we able to mitigate this just by giving him a task like holding C-spine? And ultimately, as irritating as the rod was, I mean, the job got done, inside and a 17-minute scene time, especially when someone's away from the ambulance, you got a lot of movement logistics, not bad. Yeah. And in terms of like sussing out who he is, I want to be on that scene to see like all the people looking at each other. Is he one of yours? No, it's not one of mine. He's one of yours. Just like watch that go back and forth. Like,
how long did we let this go on? Yeah.
And so that's that cracks me up. So really quick, actually, one of the things you mentioned was a cerebral venous sinus thrombosis. So
I know some of these words.
Yeah. So the main one I want is because we hear the word sinus and we think head, we always think nasal. Sinus just means a widened passage. That's it. And so this particular one is actually sort of along the top of the head, and it runs fairly central. And it goes kind of from like the middle of the head to just back towards the occipital region. And so what we're saying is that there's a venous sinus right there, which is basically think of it as kind of like a wide blood vessel in a way that had a thrombus or a clot in it from all this. So that's what's going on.
Yeah.
So
it's absolutely insane to me that this patient has lived. All glory to God, because that's insane.
And it's one of those things.
And now he has like the craziest story to tell.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I don't know if he'll be able to remember it, but that
was my next question. I would want to know how much this dude remembers. Because like you said, he giggled. Well, possibly giggled when they mentioned his pants. Like, did he actually remember all of this?
Well, when the giggle thing happened, do you guys ever see the kayak.com commercial where they're doing brain surgery and he's trying to search for a good deal? And so he keeps hitting buttons in the brain to make the guy's hands move and type on a keyboard so he can do brain surgery while checking out stuff. I kind of see it as just kind of like, like wiggle the stick a little bit, see how it goes. Let's do the end of call summary. So Caboose gets dispatched to an unconscious fall patient. En route, they learn that the patient is impaled, and closer to the scene, they learn that the patient was impaled through the noggin, in spite of Spencer setting us up to believe it may be impaled somewhere else. Rutland and Burlington and the, what'd you call him, lottery winner, student lotto winner? Yeah.
Powerball.
Powerball winner. Yeah. The Powerball winner, they arrive to a very chaotic scene. Lots of people screaming, like, come on, get the guy. They find the patient unconscious. They are breathing, they have a strong radial pulse, and they have a T-post impaled through the right side of their head. Rutland, who's our lead medic on this, is bombarded with information as they arrive at the patient's side, additionally accosted by the Rod, yelling that this patient needs a backboard now, damn it. Rutland takes charge of the scene and directs folks to load the patient onto the stretcher. The patient is kept in an upright position and is moved to the ambulance. In the ambulance, the Rod continues just being the Rod, as they have been. And but otherwise, they're an effective human sea collar. So the patient then gets placed on oxygen, ECG monitoring, get some bilateral IVs, all good. They get a set of vital signs. And en route to the LZ, a secondary survey gets performed. At the LZ, Bing Air arrives and is briefly shocked by the injury, as we all will be. They end up trimming up the T-post just a little bit, safely ignoring the Rod's advice on how to trim the T-post. The patient has absent lung sounds on the left side, which doesn't really resolve with adjusting the ETT because they were concerned about a right main stem. The patient gets loaded into Bing Air, flown away. And they do a debrief, and everyone ultimately thanks the Rod for his service and hopes to one day be at the level that the Rod is. So
if I'm at the level of the Rod, I'm retiring.
Yeah,
I'm getting out. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Oh man.
All right. I know that there's quite a bit to talk about for this call.
Oh sure.
I want to do, before we go into lessons, I want to address two things. One, we should probably review just a little bit of penetrating head trauma.
Okay.
And kind of line up the objectives that we as EMS providers should be trying to accomplish. And then two, did anyone get the theme?
Not at all.
Trains. It's a train wreck.
Yeah. No, it's better than that. Okay, so we'll review what the theme is because it's pertinent to this call.
All right.
Chris, what sort of things do you want to talk about? And Ashlyn, what sort of things would you like to talk about? We'll start with Chris first.
Okay. The main things I want to talk about on this one is I want to kind of review XABCs a little bit and kind of why we do them in the order that we do them. And because we had a really good question from a listener recently about that. I do kind of want to talk about decisions on like when you scoop and run and those kind of things, because I think there's a lot of that kind of decision making that had to go on in this one. I'll probably launch into some discussion about increasing cranial pressure and what we expect to see in those kind of patients, although I don't really know that we necessarily had that going on in this. And then I want to discuss pre-oxygenation before we go to intubate.
Ashlyn, how about you?
I don't know. Like, you guys didn't have a whole section of just impalement to the head. Like, that was like half a semester for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, head impaling.
Yeah, weird.
No, probably more like scene control stuff. Just, I really feel like Rutland did such a good job. And
right.
One of the main questions I keep getting right now is when people are going out into clinicals and they are trying to gain their confidence, like, how do you find your voice? And I'm like, well, Rutland's a 24-year paramedic. I'm a 2-year paramedic. And I bet both of us probably have the same struggle.
Right.
It's hard sometimes to find your voice no matter how long you've been doing this career.
Mm-hmm.
But Rutland sounds like he did an absolutely just phenomenal job. Extrication is something that I feel like is hallmark on this podcast, and this extrication is definitely one that it's a one in a lifetime thing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
There was a lot of ways you probably could have done it, but the best way is no matter what doesn't harm the patient even more.
Well, tell us the theme.
All right.
Because apparently it's not trained.
Yeah. So
I'm lost.
The theme is a gentleman by the name of Phineas Gage.
Oh, obviously. That was my next guess.
Yeah.
Yours too, Ashlyn?
Phineas Gage.
No.
Okay.
I'm surprised you guys have never heard of Phineas Gage.
All right.
All right. Yeah. All right. A little shade your way. So Phineas Gage lived from 1823 to 1860, and he is known and like talked about almost reverently in some circles for his highly improbable survival of a severe penetrating head injury involving a large metal rod that got blasted through his head.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm going to Google it because I want to see this.
The Wikipedia page described him as sort of like a psychologist, neurologist, like Rorschach test, in that they were able to interpret kind of whatever they wanted based on all of his like the watershed effects from this. But here's what we do know, that he had an accident on September 13th of 1848. He was working for a railroad company called Rutland and Burlington, and they were blasting rock to lay down roadbed. So at the time, work consisted of putting blasting powder into a hole that was bored into the rock, inserting a fuse, and then tamping down the material with an inert substance like sand or clay, using that metal rod. On this fateful day, on the 13th of September, Phineas was doing this work and turned his head to talk with some coworkers who were, talking behind him. And the tamponing rod ended up igniting the blasting powder. It launched the 1.25-inch diameter rod into and through Phineas's head, landing about 80 meters away. Here's what Wikipedia had about the injury. It entered the left side of Gage's face in an upward direction, just forward of the angle of the lower jaw. It continued upward outside the upper jaw, possibly fracturing the cheekbone. It passed behind the left eye, through the left side of the brain, then completely out the top of the skull through the frontal bone. He, of course, was blasted down onto the ground from this thing, briefly seized, and then became conscious and even walked to a nearby ox cart.
Wow.
Which then took him to a local doctor. So the doctor was like, oh, yeah, there's like bits of brain kind of all over this place. But they essentially kind of just sutured him up And then at some point, when he got sick, like he had like fungus kind of growing, they smartly cut it away, which essentially is like the only reason he actually lived beyond this.
Wow.
He had quite a long recovery, but ultimately did recover, and got a job as a long distance stagecoach driver for the last part of his life.
Wow.
Unfortunately, he did die in 1860 at a fairly young age from status epilepticus, which was unresponsive to their medical treatment at the time, which was essentially like, I don't know, let's bleed him.
Oh,
yeah. So this is like a really significant like medical case. It drew a lot of attention because it really sort of brought into like, there are a lot of reports that his personality changed significantly, and they're like, oh, does the brain have parts of the personality in it? Like, so it like not only did he live after, like he shouldn't have, but like there were significant changes that happened in his life as a result of this. So in both cases, despite the detriment of the rod, both Phineas Gage and Rutland's P. Gage survived.
Wow.
And I thought that was also interesting.
Wild. Yeah. And then the pictures of Phineas on Google, like he's just holding this pole like a badass. Like he's like, this is my pole.
I actually thought it was a gun.
Yeah.
Like I looked it up too. I'm like, oh, he's sitting there with a rifle. He's about to go hunting. And they're like, oh no, it's a giant pole.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
Real quick, let's talk about, this won't take too long. We're just going to kind of do a quick review of penetrating head trauma.
Okay.
So obviously blunt head trauma is the most common type of head trauma, but penetrating trauma also happens, does have a lower incidence, but often has a higher mortality associated with it, and firearms being the most predominant cause of that.
Right.
Not necessarily the firearms, but actually the bullets. Yeah.
Right.
So,
no one's just chucking rifles at people. Huh. How come I'm not very effective with my firearm?
Yeah.
Hey, they ran out of bullets and now they gotta
It could
be.
Penetrating.
All I'm imagining is like a musket, just like tossing a musket at somebody.
Like a javelin,
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So there's kind of two categories of the penetrating trauma. We have the low speed trauma, which is like a knife, a T-post, those sorts of items. And then you have the high speed. These are like bullets, missiles, fragments of, and they all have, they all have different kind of problems associated with them. Significantly for the low speed, we're worried about like laceration and direct tissue damage from the object. We're worried about bleeding. With the higher speeds, we have those problems, but we also have the shockwave and the cavitation. And if things fragment, there's just more direct damage that can happen to the brain. So, when we think about that, we think of the primary injury. Those are the primary injurers of the of our head and brain. Like the T-post in this instance, directly damaged brain tissue, skull and brain tissue, and that is the primary damage. Unfortunately for us in EMS, we can't do shit all about that because we weren't there to prevent it. So that has happened. That damage has already happened. What we have to focus on is the secondary damage that will continue to happen if this patient doesn't get treatment. And to be frank, the patient will have these even with treatment. So those are the things that we need to worry about, is like the area of injury getting worse. So the big things that we need to focus on are preventing hypotension, preventing hypoxia, preventing hypothermia, but also like if they have a fever, that also needs to be addressed and should be addressed. And we also want to prevent hyperventilation. For hypotension, at least according to the National Institute of Health Stat Pearls, there's a goal of at least 90 millimeters of mercury for a systolic blood pressure. Let your protocols be your guide.
Right.
we want to make sure that we are stabilizing the object so that we are not causing further primary injury damage. And we want to control blood loss. The head is a very vascular organ, object, anatomy. Area. And it turns out that blood can easily dissect through all sorts of areas if it's given a chance. So you can actually have a really significant amount of blood that just sort of like gets trapped between the skull and the head. If there is a way, if there's a way, blood will find it.
Yeah.
So this is one where you have to just anticipate that like the blood loss could be profound and monitor for hematomas that are rising. And treat accordingly. We also need to be concerned about increased intracranial pressure because that can have a detrimental effect on cerebral perfusion pressure. So if there is more pressure in the brain because of swelling, because of bleeding, because there's now a pole that's blocking objects, and then that means that there is less blood available to go through and get to the healthier parts of the brain, and you can have significant damage if there isn't enough blood flow, which can cause that downward spiral. We need to worry about airway and breathing because yes, this patient had an airway, and I don't I do not think that the patient needed RSI under Rutland's care, but ultimately they did because they did have a pole through their head, and I would expect things that we're seeing to get worse.
Right.
But that is definitely something that needs to be considered because how we manage cerebral perfusion pressure and ICP is via ventilation, at least out in the field. So, and then really what they most definitely need is rapid transport to not just a trauma center, but a neurosurgical capable trauma center, because they are going to have to, in this case, cut this person's head open and make sure that all the parts of the post are taken out and identify all the damage that's there. One thing I will say, although this call didn't involve bullets, is that with bullets, we really want to, check for multiple bullet holes, and those can be really hard to find, especially if the idiot who was shot in the head has hair. Which
why are they an idiot?
Because they had hair, Chris.
Right. That's fair.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
The smartest people have no
shouldn't
hair.
have had hair.
Balding.
Wouldn't have gotten shot.
That's why we're bald.
No,
it's
hair,
a choice.
That's exactly. It's a choice. But hair can really make it hard to identify small.
100% it can, especially dark hair.
Yep. So,
sorry, Ashlyn, don't get shot in the head.
Ashlyn, it's time to get shaved. It's time to shave.
Or
Join
bleach.
Us. Yeah.
Go platinum.
Nah, I'm good.
You good?
Oh,
right.
gosh. No.
Nope, not right.
Oh, God.
All right. So, with that, let's get into the call.
Really quick, before I get there, is it this might be a good time for me to kind of launch into my ICP CPP thing that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Just before we quite get into the call. So really quick, we talked about this on the last one. I do want to talk a little bit more about increased intracranial pressure and cerebral perfusion pressure and why we want to maintain certain systolic blood pressure goals and what we can expect to see. So we're talking about cerebral perfusion pressure. That, as Spencer already mentioned, that's the amount of pressure it takes to perfuse your brain. And this will, in the amount required, that's the amount you have is the CPP. That's what you currently have. Okay. The amount required the amount of pressure required is going to go up if the pressure inside the cranial space increases, because it's just more pressure that it has to work against. And this is kind of what creates a lot of these issues. So this patient didn't really show Cushing's triad. But Cushing's triad is the lowering of a heart rate, which the patient had an oddly low heart rate for what was going on. And an increased BP. And the reason you have those, we did talk a little bit about this last episode, but I'll reiterate. The reason you have those is that when your brain was picking out space in the body on where it was going to settle, it did not account for a roommate. It was like, hey, this is my own personal space. I'm going to be here. If you put a pole in there, or if you add extra blood from bleeding in there, all of a sudden there's too much space and the brain says, I don't like other people. I'm going to start heading out the bottom.
Not enough space.
Not enough space. Yeah, sorry. No, not too much space. Yeah. Says, there's too many people, not enough space. I'm going to leave. I'm going to head out the bottom. And the bottom is the foramen magnum. That's just the hole that goes down to the spine. But what will initially happen is your brain will say like, hey, there's this pressure that's coming on in here. And because this pressure's increased, I'm not getting the blood flow upward that I need. So I need to increase my own blood pressure. And it'll do that two ways. It will cause actually tachycardia. And I know some people are like, oh, but you said bradycardia. I did. Hang on. It'll cause a little bit of tachycardia, and it's going to cause some vasoconstriction to try and drive up the blood pressure. And you're going to see that blood pressure increase to compensate for the lack of cerebral perfusion pressure. So we're going to try and raise that perfusion pressure back up by doing this. So initially, at the start of herniation, which is what it's called when it goes down through the escape hatch there, it's not an escape hatch, but when it goes down through the escape hatch, that herniation, you actually see a little bit of tachycardia. Well, what ends up happening is as the brainstem gets pushed down through the escape hatch, there are centers that control respiratory rate and heart rate. And those centers get compressed. And when that happens, you see the heart rate will drop and the respiratory rate will become uneven. So you get like the buyouts breathing and the oddball patterns. And so that is where the Cushing's triad comes in. High blood pressure, low heart rate, irregular respirations. So anyway, that is really all I want to talk about. In terms of what you can do from the field, obviously just pull the stick out. No, I'm kidding. Do not pull the stick out.
Don't do it.
Yeah. But
why not, you know?
Exactly.
What's the worst that could happen?
But this is where it kind of comes through. One of the lessons we learned in our last episode is through trauma, all things are possible. And so when sometimes you'll have patients where it's like, well, gosh, maybe they're not herniating because they don't have Cushing's triad. It's like, or maybe we've created some extra room in the head by jamming a rod through the head. And now there's a hole and there's a place for the pressure to go. So those are things to consider.
One thing that I'm thinking about, this is a young patient, like they're 20.
Truth.
I know that my blood pressure runs really low. Like my blood pressure on average is like high 90s, low 100s. Mm-hmm. This person could be in Cushing's triad.
Sure. By the time we get to the end, we're 160s, right?
Well, even in the beginning, he was at 131 over 72. Yeah. For me, that would be high. This person could be showing Cushing's triad, but to the layman's eye, like this looks normal.
You're right. And it could just be that, hey, this is just as high as their blood pressure goes. And then by the time we get to the end, they're, 160 systolic, with a heart rate of 60. And again, the thing for me with the heart rate of 60 is that's awfully slow for a spear through the head. Like we should be, even a healthy athletic person who normally has a low resting heart rate is going to have some kind of sympathetic response from that and be tachycardic, or I would expect that anyway. So, I mean, does it change anything I'm doing on scene with this guy? Not really. But it's just kind of something to note as you examine your patients. So anyway, that's all I have to say on that.
Yeah. Well, in terms of the key points from the do no harm, I think they did a really good job. They identified that, hey, this is a patient that needs to be rapidly transported. They did not take them to the local trauma center to get transferred out. They flew them from the scene. They maintained stabilization of the item. Bleeding, like they could have, I guess, put some like gauze around the wound, but it's not, from the description, it was continuous. It wasn't like significant, but there's that. They kept the patient's blood pressure in a good range, and they prevented hypoxia, and I'm assuming blasted the heat, which of course only worsened the students' car sickness.
It's true.
I think for the most part they really did try and hit those main goals in preventing the watershed damages. We can't take the pole out, but we can try and stop the pole. We can't take the rod out, but we can try and stop the rod from hurting the patient anymore. And
either rod,
either rod,
literally,
either rods. So I mean, generally speaking, I do feel like the treatments that they gave lined up with the goals. to kind of launch into a little bit of just an XABC conversation, we got this question recently, and it was a really good question, is that it's like, hey, why are we saying XABC and putting circulation at the end? Isn't X and circulation kind of one and the same? Why aren't we just doing circulation first, then airway breathing? Why do we do this whole XABC thing? And
well, your circulation might change once you exsanguinate.
Right.
Like your circulation could
will.
be.
If you exsanguinate.
100%.
Yeah, if you exsanguinate, circulation gets really crappy really fast. But
you won't have a C anymore, so you just have to worry about A and B.
Which makes it really easy at that point. But the way
you're just deleting letters.
Yeah, but the way I think I'd like people to look at it, and you know, we had mentioned this earlier, is you know, XABC, everything that is occurring in XABC. I think when we're in school, we get really caught up on list, right? Well, hey, what happened first in the list? That's obviously the most important thing. It's like, well, no, they're all kind of simultaneously important. We do want you to approach X first, because the thing is what we have learned is that if someone is bleeding and hemorrhaging enough, they will bleed out in 2 minutes, 2, 3, 4 minutes. Which if you start looking at, well, when does irreversible injury happen from hypoxia, you're typically actually looking at the 3 to 4 minute plus range. And so while airway and breathing are still very important, they're only slightly less important than exsanguination by a handful of seconds, but it's still important, because the problem with that is if the airway's bad, I can put oxygen back into you. You may have some neurological deficits, but I can put oxygen back into you. If you run out of blood on scene, most flight programs carry 2 liters, maybe, not even liters.
2 units.
2 units.
Yeah.
2 units of blood product, maybe 3. That's not enough if you are out, you know? So once someone bleeds out, dunzo, call it, because you can't fix
you're
it.
SOL, sorry.
Yeah. And so
sorry, my guy.
when we're putting,
it turns out blood carries the oxygen.
Yeah. So I guess, so then weird. So what it comes down to is then, so what's the difference between X and C? Well, from my perspective, X is immediate hemorrhage control. In other words, the hemorrhages that are going to kill them within minutes, you stop that. That is what X. X is about interventions to stop external bleeding. Then you're going to move on to A and B, which again, these are all really quick things you're doing. And now C is going to be things like, okay, we still have poor circulation. Maybe we have internal bleeding. Maybe we stop the external bleeding, but we're probably still low volume. Now we're going to address problems with C, because our main ways to address C, aside from stopping bleeding, is going to be giving fluid. Well, in this XABC, chances are you don't have lines established yet. So C is going to go at the end, because most of your treatments for C are going to be things that you're not going to be able to do as quickly as you can for things in the X category. So yes, are they related? Very, very closely. As Ashlyn pointed out, if you exsanguinate, it's going to change your circulation. But they are...
Well, it's more like the external. So like exsanguination and the X in it, that's your external bleeding. That's what you want to try and stop first. Whereas your circulation is going to be like what you're going to try and do to fix it now.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to break it down.
That's a great way. C is for more comprehensive circulation. Then.
There you go. Yeah. Comprehensive.
X is for, comprehensive. Yeah.
All righty.
All right. Well, I think the one system problem that I can identify here is like,
where the heck was PD?
Well, okay. Yes, actually,
maybe that piece.
So the 2 system problems that I can identify here is
it sort of sucks when your 911 dispatch asks you if you want a fixed wing, or like doesn't recognize that a fixed wing won't work.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I don't know if that's necessarily anyone's fault, but it is something that probably should be fixed going forward, because in this case it doesn't sound like it did, but it could, like, if you understand that there's a unit coming to you that you later find out like, oh, they can't because it's a fixed wing, or they're landing at an airport, you know, like way the fuck far away, and you're like, oh, then why? Like, how does that help?
It leaves a lot of opportunity for error. That's my issue.
Exactly.
With it,
Oh, absolutely. Like, what if you're just like, oh, I have a helicopter coming to me, and they're like, okay, they've landed. No, they're not.
Yeah.
We're at the LZ. Oh no, they're at the airport. So then that's when like all of the things click together.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it would be helpful from the dispatch side of it to, you know, like to have some kind of knowledge or familiarity, or to know like, you know, hey, where are, and maybe this is too much, because it's like, hey, if there's 4 different companies, they are probably not getting an update on who's closest and who's available. But resource knowledge would be really helpful here. And if you're a dispatch center for a 911 system, knowing what resources are available in terms of flight to come and respond to emergencies, that would be helpful.
So here's how I would handle that. And sorry to rush here. I've got 7 minutes of video left before we're out of space on that. But anyway, here's how I would handle that is take sometimes when we make things too complicated, especially for someone who's not in the field, that's more opportunity for error, right? So the way I put this is just like, hey, for 911 calls, these are your available agencies for flight. And then just pull the fixed wing one out.
Yeah.
Then it's not an option. Then what they don't have to do is sit there and try and evaluate the different agencies. It's just like, hey, these are the agencies you call for flight on 911. Make it a simple thing and just kind of take away the ability to have errors. So, because I think, I like having options, but sometimes options lead to problems, and if there's one option
100%.
Exactly. And if there's one option that's always bad, which would be fixed wing, remove it. So, which I guess fixed wing would not be always bad, but you get what I'm saying here. It's just like, maybe remove that.
Yeah.
I've ran into this before. The very first car wreck I ever worked as a paramedic, I requested a helicopter, and they're like, okay, they're going to have a 45-minute ETA. I'm like, whoa, there is a base like 10 minutes away. Why is that helicopter not being launched or at least being contacted? Yeah. Oh, well, we haven't called them yet.
Well, give it a shot.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, why did you call the farthest base first? Why didn't you call the closest base first? So that was an easy system fix that was addressed. But
good deal.
Before that, I was like, why would you call the farthest base?
Right.
And I think a lot of it comes down to just like the dispatch centers don't know where the bases are. And maybe that would be a helpful piece. It's like, hey guys, these are where the bases are. If you know where the call is, you can kind of see on your board what the closest possible unit is, because again, sometimes stuff is gone or not available. But pregame, I think they had a plan that was executed on scene. Hey, grab the stretcher. I'm going to go down and see what's going on. And that just kind of, like they got there and, they were punched in the face and the plan changed.
Yeah, exactly. Punched in the face by a volume of people.
Here's the question for you. And I kind of know Chris, I think I know where you stand. So Rutland went down without like bringing, and granted, like they have a giant heavy like bag kit.
So are we talking about
down with them?
Sorry. So is your question is should they have brought the kits down or not?
Do you feel like like they should have brought a kit down, or do you feel like the plan that they had, there's BLS down there, and their priority is to do, hey, let's do BLS care to get the patient scooped and run, and not dedicate ourselves to this scene? Do you feel like that was a good one, or are you kind of along the lines of like, no, bring your shit?
I don't think you quite know where I stand on this one, but I'm curious what Ashlyn says.
I would probably, so on my unit, I have like a catch-all bag. Like I have everything in one little bag, and then I have like a trauma bag and a medicine bag. I would probably at minimum bring the catch-all bag, because I know it has gauze. I know it has a BVM. I know it has an armor breather. I know it has oxygen. So I would at least probably bring that bag. But as far as everything else, probably not. Because like you said, that means you're going to be dedicated to being down there. Right. And the goal is to get him in the truck. Yeah. So I can at least perform the immediate stuff and then move him to where all the rest of the stuff is.
Here's my take on it is that, so listeners of this podcast have probably heard me rant several times. I don't like it when people leave kits behind when there's no reason to, because it's, or when people are like, we're probably not going to need this kit, so just leave it. And like, that just sets you up for failure. In this case, though, because we talked about, we had some reasonably rough terrain. The patient wasn't straight away there. And you had people guiding you in, but gosh, people can make mistakes en masse and guide you the wrong way. And so the problem is when you have a scene that has a fairly broad area where the patient could be in, if you take all your kits and your gurney with you, you kind of commit your equipment to potentially the wrong spot. And now you're slower. And so I think I agree with Ashlyn that it's actually going to say almost the exact same thing, is bring with you a couple essentials. Bring with you something like a BVM, or maybe with an OPA or a tourniquet. Make sure you have a tourniquet. And just go with that. Figure out where the patient is and now commit your equipment to the right spot. Because this has a scene where there's a lot of potential to commit yourself to the wrong spot. And so I think Ashlyn's right on the money. Keep yourself mobile. Bring something. Keep yourself mobile, though, until you know where you need to be.
I think in this situation, if you know that the departments that are there, if you know the kits, you know what they're bringing to the scene, because you don't want to show up with nothing and then realize like, oh, the BLS crew also didn't bring anything for some reason. Like,
Yeah.
I think if you don't know, bring a kit. Just to make sure you have the BLS equipment that you need, recognizing that there will be this part of you that goes like, well, I'm waiting for the stretcher to come. I should start an IV, or I should do this stuff, because it will always take longer. And if you have a goal of, hey, I want to get this person loaded, then your actions should really work towards that. But I think, like in this case, I believe that Rutland had a pretty good idea of like what was going to be available to them down at the scene, and they made the decision to go to that equipment, foregoing the ALS equipment that was waiting for them in the ambulance. So okay. Primary assessment thoughts. You brought up, Ashlyn, a really good point about, hey, do we know what the pelvis was before we moved the patient? If they did do that assessment, it was either not said to me, or I forgot to ask it. I really focused on just sort of that initial XABC portion. But you and Chris made mention of like, yeah, you can bleed significantly through the pelvis, and this is a patient who fell.
If they didn't, like, I'm guilty of it too. Just like the lung sounds, like the flight crew's like, well, what was the lung sounds before? We're all guilty of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, it takes literally 2 seconds. It takes a minute to feel a pelvis and see if it's stable. But if you didn't do it, like, there was a pull through his head. There was a pretty large priority going on. And if you didn't, that's fine. In the long run, though, it's going to be that call that reminds you of, hey, I need to check pelvis before. Because all it takes is one patient. All it takes is my blood pressure was this. Now it's this. I don't know what's going on. Well, you might have been like, hey, that pelvis was unstable. It might be leaking blood now. You would have a possible source and an idea of what's going on in the body. Like I told Spencer before it started, traumas stress me out because I can't see what's going on. I have vitals that are changing. I don't know why, because I can't see exactly what's going on inside the body. But if I had checked it before I moved him, I may have an idea of like why my blood pressure is now dropping, because there's 4 liters of blood in the pelvis now.
I just lost video, but that's okay. I'll just put a picture or something up there. We can have fun with it.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Sweet. So sounds like the primary assessment overall fairly solid. Secondary assessment, I think, like there was a lot going on. I think that I thought they did a very solid job with that. Yes, it was worth getting lung sounds, and Rutland, to their credit, they were like, I should have got the lung sounds, and they were kicking themselves because they thought that they potentially had missed a pneumothorax.
Yeah, but let's put it this way, though, Spence. You and I have talked about this before. When it comes to pneumothorax, you really don't treat a pneumothorax until it becomes a tension pneumothorax anyway.
Right.
We start seeing tension physiology. And it's not like, no, I mean, and here's the thing. I'm not trying to drive this as an excuse. These are assessments that probably should have been done. But factor in this whole call and everything that got done. And it's not like we missed a pelvic exam on a patient with poor skin signs and poor signs of circulation. And it's not like we missed lung sounds on someone who appeared to have difficulty breathing or an airway issue. We weren't missing them on those. So from my perspective, I mean, it's sure. It's a point to add. It's something to do the next time you go on a guy with a pull through his head. But it's for this one, I mean, the takeaway from this call should not be those those details that we're talking about.
No, these are nitpicky. I want to be clear, because I would be just as guilty of not checking a blood sugar on this person. And if they did,
that's right. You didn't check a blood sugar.
I did not ask, so I don't know. Maybe they did, and they're just like.
I think it's like you guys always say. There's going to be something somebody would have done different. Nobody is going to run this call identical to how Rutland did. They're going to do it different. They're going to have their own quirks and ways of doing things. Somebody might have checked lung sounds. Rutledge didn't, and that's fine, because I probably wouldn't have done the same thing, Yeah.
I would have started CPR, actually. That's what we should have done.
Yeah. I will say, like, I think the lung sounds are probably only slightly a bigger deal, because then it brought us to this question of, hey, is the tube too far?
Very true.
And that's why, or is there actually a physio? Now, granted, like, like, I don't want to main stem a patient, because I'm trying to put a whole human amount of air into half a lung worth of
that's true.
air. And that can cause some problems down the road. But at the same time, like, if it's not causing a problem, then it's sort of not a problem, if that makes sense. And you can watch trends to go like, hey, is their heart rate going up? Is their blood pressure dropping down? Are they getting high pressures, etc.? So it would help down the road. But again, it's understandable to miss this part. So let's go on to treatment. So we know that the patient got oxygen. There are probably some people who would have gone like, hey, why weren't they on oxygen down at the bottom? And you're right. That's fair.
Yeah.
They could have been put on oxygen down at the bottom by the providers there. They could have been put on oxygen right away by Rutland. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts?
Oof.
You have such a big priority of, we need to get along, get going. And if I was only on scene for 17 minutes, could I have spent half a second putting a normal breather on this guy? Sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's be fair. It's a minute with the pole.
Yeah, you're not wrong, actually.
Yeah.
But
and he usually is.
You said you said they suctioned the guy. So if I would have looked at the airway and been like, okay, I should probably suction. Well, my suction unit's back in the truck.
Yeah.
So could I have? Yeah, absolutely. But like we said about the lung sounds or the blood sugar, I have a priority right now, and that is, I need to get this patient situated as best as possible.
So as far as oxygen down on the scene, I don't think not putting it on played to detriment. We didn't really have SaO2 on the scene itself, so it's hard to know was the patient needing. In fact, I don't think we even had our first SaO2 until after oxygen was on him. But it's not like the first SaO2 was 100%. I've never seen 101. My biggest call for O2 in this patient really doesn't have anything to do with needing to have it on scene, but more in terms of, are we going to be intubating this patient down the road? And I've talked about this before here, is I don't believe in just throwing oxygen on every single patient all the time, because it's not needed. If someone has 95% or higher, you're fine. When we get ready to intubate somebody, right, so I don't believe in just throwing routine oxygen on somebody, but I will throw oxygen on people who are satting at 100%. If I think I'm going to be intubating them in the future. And here's the reason, is you got to remember, when we go to intubate somebody in that period of apnea, blood is still flowing, the heart is still pumping. And what's happening is blood is going up to the lungs and saying, hey, I'm going to grab some of the oxygen you have in the lungs. I'm going to go take it elsewhere. Boom. I'm going to go take it elsewhere. That 100% saturation, all that's telling you is how much of that blood is saturated. It's not telling you at all how much oxygen is in the lungs. So on a room air, so if you have someone who's room air 99%, they're achieving 99% with only 20% of that lung volume being oxygen, because that's the room air mix. And so you will desat much, much quicker, because as blood goes around and starts grabbing oxygen, it has less. However, if we replace all of that nitrogen with oxygen, to where they have a 99 to 100% mix of oxygen in their lungs, they will stay at higher saturations for significantly longer. And that is why I want to talk about pre-ox, because what we're seeing a lot, like in the service that Spencer and I work with, is we're seeing pre-oxygenation has gone beyond just, all right, pre-oxygenate with high flow oxygen. It's now like, hey, this is how we pre-oxygenate. You're going to put a non-rebreather on them at wide open, not 15 liters per minute anymore, but wide open, because you can easily outbreathe 15 liters per minute. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, really, can you? Well, the problem is that oxygen mask is going to be outputting 15 liters in that entire minute, but you're not inhaling every second of that minute, are you? You're actually inhaling for half or less. And so you're not getting all of that 15 liters per minute. And so if you are inhaling more than 15 liters per minute, then you're not getting 100% oxygen. And so when I would just say, hey, crank it wide open, you can add PEEP as well by just setting the BVM mask on somebody's face and just having a PEEP valve to where when they exhale, if they have their own respiratory drive, that can assist. You can assist them with the BVM. But the goal is you need to pre-oxygenate for some amount of time. Some PCG or some guidelines will say 3 minutes, some will say 5. But the purpose is have a deliberate pre-oxygenation plan. And it usually runs to somewhere around, it's like, hey, we're going to set a target minimum SaO2, and then we're going to hold that SaO2 for several minutes. And that just kind of assures that we are replacing all the nitrogen we can with oxygen. And your patients are your intubations will go better with that. You will desat less.
The pre-hospitalist just made a post yesterday about it on her Instagram about the pre-oxygenation, how a lot of services, it's even in my protocols at my service, they want us to have a or a nasal cannula, no matter what, on the patient, just crank the sucker up, like put it at 10, put it at 15. If it's a person that's still breathing, throw that NOMR breather on, throw it, like, as you said, wide open, put that BVM on, start ventilating with them. But as much as you can, because like you said, that person may be 99 or 100% now, but as soon as you give that paralytic and it knocks all of that out, they could drop like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and they will. So no, good. I'm really glad your service is doing that. And a lot of services are moving that way, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah. One of the things I do want to bring up with the RSI, Rutland got a lot of flack from their coworkers because they said, hey, why didn't you RSI the patient right away? The penetrating head injury, I would have. And I wouldn't have. I think they had enough on their plate, and the patient was maintaining, ventilation and oxygenation seemed like very well up until the point where the flight crew decided to intubate them. I think one of the things that I want to bring up with rapid sequence intubation or even delayed sequence intubation is that you do success isn't just your skill, it's your setup. And so if you're in the back with a student and with a volunteer nurse who may or may not, I don't know the nurse's experience with intubation, maybe they'd be helpful, maybe they're like, oh, I've never done that,
if they're an urgent care nurse, I'm gonna go with probably not.
And the rod, then you're not really setting yourself up for a good, successful intubation.
Right.
And so I think this is fine in one of those situations where it's like, hey, this is going well now. I anticipate it will change, and we should have a plan ready in case. But you can wait till the flight crew gets there and go, and anticipate that they're going to want to intubate the patient. Have a system in place so that you're anticipating I need suction. Well, why don't we
get it
maybe
out?
We start with suction beforehand to make sure that
you definitely do. Get your suction ready. Well, quick question.
I always tell the paramedic students, they just went over intubation right now. I told them your setup should be way longer than your actual intubation attempt.
Oh, 100%.
You should have everything ready before you even attempt to stick that blade in their mouth.
You can make a tube a fairly insignificant event to the body if you do it right. So I absolutely agree with that. It's the setup that's important. The only other thing I'll say, this is Chris Finkston's tip for successful intubations. If you get used to intubating dummies, a lot of times when we intubate dummies, we kind of just go right for the gold, right? We just stick that blade in there, we put it right down where it needs to be, and we start doing it. Don't do that. When you are intubating, whether using VL or DL, but I do recommend video laryngoscopy if you can, what you do is you start high. Start with something you know. Find a structure you see. Okay, there's the hard palate. I know the hard palate. And then you just start, as you move the blade down, you just follow and look at every single structure you're expecting to see, and you'll get there. It helps so much.
Walk down the tongue. You'll never get lost. Treatments. They also gave TXA. Chris, we know it doesn't help blood clots. So
it absolutely helped. Oh my gosh.
All right, fine. It helps blood clots. And it's an appropriate use here, in my opinion. I do recall there was something that came out where it was head trauma with a GCS of 3. Don't give TXA. Follow your protocols, follow your guidelines. My understanding is this would be an appropriate patient to administer TXA with, but I'm open to being wrong.
I didn't even think about TXA. Because whenever I hear think TXA or anything, I'm like, oh, there's massive blood. There's blood everywhere. It's gushing out from everywhere. Yeah. This guy, you don't really see where it is. And you said, it's the head.
All over his face. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
exactly.
is.
Yeah.
But there's probably more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So
yeah, I wouldn't have even thought about TXA.
Yeah,
so that's kind of interesting to me.
I didn't until they mentioned it.
what about BLS stuff?
Yeah. Do all the above, except don't start IVs and maybe don't intubate the patient
Unless unless IVs are in your scope. One of the things we discovered is that as we travel, we went to Nebraska recently, and we did actually that was back in June. But anyway, we did some
recently.
Yeah, pretty recently. We went back to Nebraska, or went back. I've never been there before, actually. We went to Nebraska, and they do not have hills, by the way. And we did a lot of teaching there. And I keep talking about BLS stuff, and finally I'm like, wait, do you guys do IVs here? And everyone's like, yep. And it's like, okay, so let me retool this. But yeah, so depending on where you are, maybe do the IVs. But again, when it comes to these head trauma calls, guys, a lot of this is BLS stuff. And what I want to remind BLS providers is one of the things that we hear that's almost disheartening, and I'm sure you've heard it too, Ashlyn, or maybe you even felt this way. I know I did when I was BLS only. We kind of get this thing where it's like, well, I'm just the basic, or I'm just the EMT. It's like, here's the thing. Your scope of practice is not based on skill level. It's based on what's truly important. Because everything,
100%. This entire call could have been ran BLS.
Oh, 100% was. Yeah, with the exception of the IVs, depending on where you are, and intubating. Yeah. But again, the flight crew intubated. So if you were on scene on this, you're going to be passing.
This could have easily been a BLS call.
And
everything that they did, or everything they had to worry about. Obviously, watch for Cushing's triad, but you're taught Cushing's triad in EMT school. Yeah. So this entire call could have been easily a BLS call.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's what, when you are an EMT, remember, your scope of practice is the stuff that truly is important. That's why it's in your scope of practice, because we need it to be done, not because it's necessarily easy. The hardest things in this job to do, I think, honestly, accurately, is one is assess lung sounds, no matter what the provider is. Yeah. And two, just the plain recognition of when interventions need to be done. And those are all things that come into the assessment.
3, scene management.
Scene management, 100%.
That it seems more people learn by having to learn it. You have to trial by fire. But this call went so well because Rutland realized that they needed to take control of it to get it to go forward. And I think that is a piece that is undervalued in EMS education, but is incredible. If as a BLS provider, if you can do that and get the call to go forward, that's really what got this call moving in the right direction. This could have been a completely different review otherwise. So
yeah, EMTs, we tell the students all the time, because they always struggle with do I need to go to paramedic school? Do I need to work for a while? Will I even want to be an EMT? I said, listen, EMTs are so valuable. I understand on the e-calls, most of the time the paramedics take the patient, but you do not realize how often an EMT is missed on a truck. When it is a double medic truck, both of us are like, okay, what do we do? What do we need to do? But that EMT is the one, they're sticking the 4-lead on before you can even say something. Their blood pressure cuff has already moved to the other arm, so you can start an IV on that arm. The EMTs are so valuable. In this call, easily, this could have been a great BLS crew doing it. Because like you said, the only thing they really did was the IVs and the intubation, but they didn't even do the intubation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, geez, that was long. I know the moment we started, even we were talking before we started recording, kind of the little pre-jam session we had there. I'm like, oh, this is going to go long because she rabbit trails as much as we do. This is going to be it.
You belong. You belong.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ashlyn, you're always welcome back on the show. We really appreciate having you.
I'm so glad you guys had me.
Oh, no.
Like I said, this is really full circle. I came from listening to you guys on my way to school to now I'm on your show.
I know.
That is one of the coolest things I could ever experience.
Well, and congrats on your TikTok. There's a lot of good information in there, and you definitely deserve it and have earned your audience. So great job on that.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, I know. I mean, just to be, we see your progress. I'm like, that's I got to look up to that. That's good right there. So so thanks for coming on our show and helping us now. If you guys want your show, then go start your own fucking show. If you guys want your call to be evaluated on this show, maybe by Ashlyn O'Dell in the future, I don't know. And of course, Spencer and I
could use a break. You know?
Yeah,
Maybe.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. That's. I was thinking of having her on a guest, but if you're about to quit, then maybe we should announce that. I don't know. But yeah, if you want to be subject to our whims, then go ahead and check out our social media. We are EMS20/20 on Facebook and at EMS2020 Show on Instagram. Check out the Beacons page on Instagram that's linked in the bio, and check out the pin post on Facebook. You'll find a link to a form. Click the form, and that will get us started. We'll, of course, contact you before we use anything whatsoever. Check out our YouTube. It's at Rapid Sequence Info at YouTube. And, of course, check out Ashlyn O'Dell's TikTok. It's O'Dell Ashlyn. O-D. I got to look up your name. I'm sorry.
It's how it sounds, I promise.
Yeah, it's ODELLASHLYNN. Check out her TikTok.
And before I say the wrong handle, I also do have Instagram, and it's the opposite. It's Ashlyn O'Dell. So
yeah, but
that's probably where I got it from. Honestly, I thought it was my Instagram handle.
Oh, fair enough. And and it's also and actually, yeah, your Instagram's linked on your TikTok too. So that's
it
that's a good
is.
deal. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of tips, lots of stuff like what it's like to go from learning everything from learning how to be a paramedic and going into school all the way up kind of through your journey to now where you are teaching new paramedics.
Yeah.
And so it's fun. And there's also just fun stuff on there too to kind of keep it lighthearted. So which is always appreciated.
Yeah.
So, anyway, congratulations on TikTok. Congratulations on your new pad there. And with that, Spence, you want to take us out awkwardly?
Yeah. All right. So, God, I was really torn up. The history lesson, and hear me out, 9 Inch Nails thing. Like they're sitting at their thing before the call, and it's just sort of like a ho-hum, like every day is exactly the same.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a 9 Inch Nails title.
And then we've got, head like a hole.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And yeah. And then we've got the Rod singing particular lyrics of Closer.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Let me complicate you. Let me violate you. Yeah. I want you irate on the inside.
Oh, wow. That is perfect. All right.
Oh, I want to do things to the scene like an animal.
Oh,
yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's rough. All right, everyone. Thanks again so much for listening to yet another episode of EMS 2020. I'm going to stop it there before Spencer sings too much longer. Be sure to check out Ashlyn O'Dell, and we'll see you, a couple Wednesdays. Bye.
Yep.